Okay, so I think we're live. Hey guys, welcome to Pixel Cherry Ninja's channel where we have a very special guest today. And honestly, I am truly honored to have this person over on my channel. And we have Zophar from Zophar's Domain. Before I let them speak, I want to give a little introduction because in the early days of the internet, we're talking like around the year 2000-ish, give or take. I'm sure Zophar will give us the exact dates. But I remember searching online for stuff, and one of the sites I came across was Zophar's Domain, and it had lots of information about emulation and just general stuff about like retro gaming. It was the emulation side that I kind of had a look at. Zophar, please say hello, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and please tell us why we're looking at virtual highlight. Is that how you say it?
Indeed, virtual highlight. So, hello, Pixel Cherry Ninja. How you doing? Hey, everybody out there in YouTubian land. So I am Zophar, and the reason why we are looking at virtual highlight is kind of a funny story. But so back in the era right before I launched Zophar's Domain, one of the last games I played before I really got into the website was the Sega Saturn was the system, because this is the era of like 1995, 1996, like that couple of year era. And Virtual Highlight is actually the first video game I ever bought for the Sega Saturn, which incidentally, not counting stuff like Wolfenstein 3D, it's the first 3D console game I ever played. I loved it. I know like nowadays this game gets kind of a bum rap, but actually when this came out, this game was incredibly innovative. You know, I can't really think of a lot of games before this where you could have random seeds. I mean, nowadays you have people ROM hacking everything and making randomizers, but Virtual Highlight has a built-in randomizer that has, you know, millions and millions of different combinations where the world and the items, the treasures, and, you know, where things are completely randomized every single time. And that's just part of the game. It's not a hack. So I had a lot of fun, you know, playing that game and, you know, just trying to beat it as quick as I could back in that time before everything was called speedrunning. So years and years later, when I returned to the emulation community, I was like, hey, you know what? This would be kind of fun to, you know, play around with. Maybe I should speedrun it. You know, people were asking me, so I started speedrunning it, and now I hold 6 of the 8 categories. I'm the world record holder for fastest time in Virtual Highlight. It's like a guilty pleasure of mine. I love playing it. It's not a long game. You know, my best time is around 24 minutes. But it hits all the spots. So that's a little bit about why you're seeing Virtual Highlight on the screen there. And you can check if you're into that kind of stuff, like if you're into speedrunning or you just want to see, like, you know, me scream at the screen every time I don't get a good time. You can check out all those runs on you know, either on speedrun.com or on my YouTube channel. I got them all up there, all ragey and all epic. So that's
Absolutely.
Virtual Highlight.
Now the question,
As far as
the
I'm sorry, go
question,
ahead.
sorry, no, a mid question in there. Is it actually a good game? Because I came across Virtual Highlight during the development of the Sega Saturn called the MiSTerFPGA, and over on the Mr. Discord server, it became like a little bit of a meme, and everyone was joking about it. And you know, me going into it years and years later when it wasn't current, you know, maybe it hasn't aged well if you haven't played the game. Remember, nostalgia is a strong thing. So if I played it when it first came out, I may have kind of liked it, but I never got on with it. Is it actually a good game? Like from
So
a good game perspective?
I don't. So, in all honesty, I don't think it's the best game. Right? There are many games I could name. I could probably name you 100 games that probably are better crafted. But I would say, in terms of, is it a fun game? Absolutely. I would say it's the inverse of something like Mortal Kombat Mythologies. And when I say that, what I mean is that if you think about a game like Mortal Kombat Mythologies, if you're just watching it, graphics look great. Looks like a Mortal Kombat game from the mid 90s, right? It sounds great. You know, the deaths are really innovative. You know, it seems like a really cool idea. Turn Mortal Kombat into like a platformer with some RPG elements. But then you hold the controller in your hand and you realize that the game is a giant piece of crap and it's
Yeah.
horrible. It's probably one of the worst video games I've ever played. Virtual Highlight is actually the reverse, where if you're looking at it right now, it looks ridiculous, right? Like you can clearly see like the I don't know. I
I
could
mean,
probably whip
while
this
you're
up
talking,
myself.
while you're giving us more of a thing on this, I'm going to go ahead and like attempt to play it. But continue. Tell
Yeah,
us
yeah.
more about this.
So it looks like really cheesy. The graphics, like nowadays, all the 3D graphics of that era, early PlayStation and Saturn games, I would say a lot of them don't really hold up. But if you actually and then let me add one more thing to this. The really big thing about this game, besides the graphics that people like to mention, is the frame rate. I will completely admit that the frame rate is absolutely atrocious. It's like a slideshow. It's like you're in PowerPoint and you're flipping through slides.
Wow.
But yeah, you'll see in a second when you start playing it. But if you can get past how it looks now in 2025, this is actually a really fun game. You see what I'm talking about the frame
Yeah,
rate?
I,
How
I,
it's
I
like
see.
it almost looks like, you have a 1996 computer with a a crappy 3D chip, like a Trident generic
Dancing,
chip, and it's
yeah,
just kind of floating around there, and
dancing,
frame at a
yeah.
time.
So,
So yeah, we like to joke this game, you don't count it in frames per second, you count it in seconds per frame. But I think it got this rap because it looks ridiculous. Jim the Knight just acts ridiculous when he's running around. Like try running with him. I think hold down what is it, X, I think, hold down the X
X6,
button
okay.
and just start walking.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and like look how he runs. Like he looks like he's a little constipated, trying to find a porta potty, like trying to find a bathroom.
Uh,
But if you actually start playing it, you realize, wow, this is kind of fun. So like for example, in the
let me-
bottom right corner, you have your compass, and you're the little red arrow, and then that blue arrow that's pointing into the northwest corner, that is your first destination. You can pull up the map by pressing the Y button. So if you press Y,
Okay.
you can see where you are, and your first destination is that X, which is the graveyard. Now, a couple things. You can actually go out of order in this game. This is why it's really fun to speedrun. You actually just found the 4th level, which is the ruins. But I'm sure you're familiar with The Legend of Zelda for the NES.
I am, and
Even
that's what
though
I was
there's a
gonna
level
say.
1, a level 2, all
This
the way to level 9.
this
Yeah,
map
you
here
can.
reminds me of A Link to the Past, like
Yep.
fuddled out a little bit, you know?
Right, but you can go out of order. Like there's different, not completely. There's certain levels you have to do first, but for the most part, especially the first 4 levels, you can do them in any order that you want to. So like if I was speedrunning this and I was doing the random category where you just picked a random world yourself, if I had seen those ruins, I would have just gone right in there. Now you probably noticed when you were at the ruins earlier, there didn't seem to be an entrance. The game requires you, in order to be able to see the entrance, to have these glasses. But
Okay.
the game was programmed in a way where whether they expected you to do this or not, you can sequence break it and just run in where the entrance is supposed to be, and it will
Okay.
just take you in there.
Cool. So the entrance
Um,
is there. You just visually can't see it unless you have the glasses.
Correct. Now over here, you just got to cross the bridge because Jim can't swim
That's
apparently,
right.
even though
Okay.
it's
Okay.
probably like 4 inches of water.
That's
So
all
you're
good.
just gonna go that way, and
Let's
then
go
you
here.
just cross
So
the
I really
bridge.
like so one thing I really like with the Saturn when I played it, I found like for games that later on you kind of played on an analog stick, the controls with a D-pad were very, very intuitive in the manner that that like L and R are always strafe. So if I played something like Duke Nukem or what's like Hexen or something like that, they just the controls kind of they translate good to a D-pad with the 2 shoulder buttons and the 6 face buttons. But that's a personal opinion of mine on the Sega Saturn and any 3D type of game.
Yeah, it's what I would say, and I want to just to circle back to your original question too, as I'm thinking about this, of is it a good game? It's a fun game. It may not be a great crafted game, but it's a lot of fun. Finding out where everything is and exploring around, and seeing how the most fun I get out of this game is just seeing how fast you can do it. And where so many other games, how you get bored of them, like all right, after like the 100,000th run, it's all the same game. This game is not the same because things just keep shuffling around where they are. So it's a randomizer from 1995 before anybody even really talked about what a randomizer was.
Excellent.
So,
Let's
you-
yeah, go on.
and the other thing, as you're doing this, you're probably noticing that you just died.
Did I just get killed
Darn
by a tree? Sorry, I was looking over because I'm playing and I'm doing stuff at the same time. But if
You let the tree kill you. How could you?
you know what? It's about time. It's about time. I took one for the tree. Like I've used enough paper in my life, and the tree just come back, and there you go, vengeance for the tree. So tell us a little bit about your tell us a little bit about Zophar's Domain. I'm just going to bring up the website over here.
Yeah,
I might run another game in the background while you're telling us about this. So this is Zophar's Domain. So I'm going to make a confession here, right? So when I first, so I was looking on the internet like years and years ago, and I remember my brother or someone bought so I had a Game Boy Advance. I remember, and I think this is around the time I came across it. So I was looking for ROMs of games that I legally owned but didn't want to take out of the box because I just knew they were going to be worth lots of money. So I was like, let me find the ROMs of my games. And while I was looking for them, and obviously, doing a search for like ROMs, emulation, Game Boy Advance, I came across Zophar's domain. Now, I have to say, like at first I was disappointed because I was like, where's the games at? Where's the games at? I want the games, they're not here. It was all emulation. And then I came across this other site from the same era called DGEMU something, dgemu.com, and that would give me, if I created a login, it would let me download like a game or two with like some free points that it would give me, and then I would go and get like a random game here or there. So but tell us a bit about your site, how it started, your journey, where it is now. Just let us know about this site. So I'm looking at it now. Obviously, I can see you've got the latest emulation news. I know you do a lot. You've got a lot of music. You've got a lot of soundtracks for games on here. So, how did it begin? What were your inspirations? What made you start here? Did you take a break in between, and did you then go back to it? Just run us through the process.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll take you back here. We'll go back to the past here, 1995, 1996, that era. So, I'm in high school, and I had just started getting, the 3D consoles, right? The Saturn had just come out, the Sony PlayStation had just come out, the N64 would be out, about a year later, right? And 3D was all the rage. Everyone's saying this is the future, right? Everything's going to 3D. And at that time, I was still really enjoying, my 2D systems. I love the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. They're actually two of my favorite systems of all time. The Saturn I've come to learn that I love. And during that time, I was kind of pining for the past, which is interesting that a 15 or 16-year-old is wishing he was 11 or 12 again. But here we are.
I wish if I was
feeling.
16 again, actually, not 11 or 12, too young. 18 to 21, I'd like to be.
Fair. But so I'm sitting there, and my games are not working like they used to. My NES cartridges, if you're familiar with the NES, I'm sure you'd sit there and I would always blow on the cartridge, and of course now they tell you don't do that. You're just making it worse.
I heard that, but it worked, and I still do it to my Game Boy Advance. So I'm not one to blow something, but if I've ever blown something, it's been a heap. It's been a heap of cartridges.
Right. So I'm sitting there trying to get my NES cartridges to work. They don't work anymore. My Sega CD's not reading discs. I had to get a Sega CD Model 2 because my Model 1 stopped reading discs. And then my Model 2 started having trouble reading discs like a year later. And so things were just breaking down. And now we have these new 3D systems, and, they're fun. But like I had a lot more fun with Sonic for the Genesis and Zelda for the NES and, the Lunar games for Sega CD, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And just stuff stopped working. And so I'm like feeling all sad and nostalgic. And man, I wish there was a way, like, I don't have a lot of money. I was working at a pizza shop at that point. I just gotten one of my first jobs, making $3 an hour. I don't know how many pounds that is in the UK, but it was $3 an hour, three US dollars. It was total garbage. I had no money. I couldn't afford to replace anything. I couldn't get new hardware. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So then I was talking to one of my friends, and my friend was like, there's these pieces of software on the internet. And I was like, the what? What's that? He's like, oh, yeah, you can go on this thing called the internet. You go online, and there's these programs that you can download, and it'll let you play the video games like the Nintendo on your computer. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And he showed me how to get into the internet. So I got online. At that time, I had
this is with dial-up, yeah. This is where if you want to go on, you need to make sure your mum doesn't call your grandmother.
Right, where you'd get the that, yeah.
I remember.
Dial-up modem sounds. So I had a 14.4K modem, which basically downloaded things at this massively fast speed of about 1.4 kilobytes a second. It was
banging
so fast, let me tell you. So I think it took like an hour to download Doom shareware. But so we I got online, and I found out about the internet. I found out about this place called IRC. For those of you that might be listening that don't remember IRC, weren't around, you do. It stands for Internet Relay Chat, and that was how I used to.
Was there an M in front of it? Sometimes was it MIRC? And the reason
so MIRC is the app that I use. That's the program. So MIRC was a popular one. that I used, but IRC is the actual
Because
protocol itself.
I say that because a friend of mine he used to tell me, nah, you know what, bro? And this sounds like this is what's like, bro. I've been using Merc. And I was like, what the heck's Merc? He goes, yeah, Merc is getting. I always remember it. And I was like,
I
oh,
never
you
called
mean
it Merc
IRC? No,
before. I
he
always
called
called
it.
it MIRC. That's pretty
Yeah, no,
funny.
no. And I was like, oh, you mean MIRC or IRC? Yeah, I said, I've heard of that. He goes, yeah, man,
Why
I'm
didn't
getting better stuff from
I
Merc.
think of
I'm
that?
kind of doing
I
that
should have
English
told people
voice.
that. I was like, yo, man, I'm using Merc, man. Come on over to the Merc side. But yeah, so I was using, I was using MIRC to get on onto chat. And a lot of my other friends like didn't know what that was. Like they were using like AOL chat, which was like a whole like, people on IRC would say, "Oh, if you use AOL, you're lame." Like it was so silly back then, teenage years. But so I used MIRC, and it was there that I met people that created the software known as emulators to make the games work on the computer. And I thought, wow, this is pretty amazing. So I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, well, let me go find a site that has all the emulators. Well, there wasn't really one. I found some really great sites like Archaic Ruins and Node 99, big inspirations for Zophar's domain, by the way, that were really great at giving you information, links to sites, news about sites. But it didn't actually have any files in the beginning. Later on they did, but in the beginning, Archaic Ruins had no files. I see you got M. Bison there pining
Do
about
you know what?
Tuesday.
While we're going on, so what I'm going to try and do is while we're talking and that, to give people eye candy, I'm going to pick the cheesiest stuff that I can. I'm going to try and have nothing of quality on here because we started with one of your favorite games, Virtual Hydrolide, however you bloody say it. Now we're going into Street Fighter the movie, Hydlide. I will remember it eventually. My boy DJ there, Chun Li. Yes, it's not Tuesday. Tuesday's tomorrow, love. So got the businessman. Anyway, please continue because it's super entertaining.
And no worries. And then, and real quick fun fact, since you just said virtual highlight again, I want to go back to, and then I'll go back to what I was saying. Highlight isn't anything. It isn't anywhere. You don't actually run around Highlight. You run around a place called Fairyland. No one actually knows what Highlight is. It's not a boss. It's not a person. It's not where you're at. It's not a town. Nobody knows what Highlight is. It's the silliest thing. We could go like all day long about the lore of virtual Highlight, or the fact that the princess is called Lena in the graphic, the intro graphic, but she's called something else in the manual, which is escaping me what her name is, but it's not Lena. But anywho, so back to Zophar's domain. So yeah, I was like, okay, they don't have files. I got to go, I guess, to find the emulators separately. So I would follow the links. And sometimes you get lucky, and I found an emulator called Pacifami and Super Pacifami, which was they were emulators by a gentleman from Japan, Nobuaki Ando. Hope I'm saying his name right. And I found another Nintendo emulator called Ines from Marat Faizulin, but they are all on different sites. And sometimes you go to a site and the link is broken or it's down, it's not working. Like that was a common thing back then. A lot of sites were run on people's servers. Or on unreliable, bigger servers that would just go down sometimes. So I'm like, all right, well, I finally got the emulators. All right, I got Pacifami and Super Pacifami. All right, now, how do I get the games? I got Legend of Zelda. I own it. It's here. How do I get the game? Well, copiers are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't have that kind of money. How do I get this? All right, well, there's a separate site for that. All right. Okay, I found them, and I have them in split format, CHR-PRG. Does anybody remember that? Where Nintendo ROMs used to be in two different files, one for the data and one for the character data? Yep, true story. And I'm like, oh, well, Ines doesn't work with that. It's got to be an NES format. All right, now I need a utility that will copy them back together into one file. All right, so now I need something for that. All right, now I see there's these Japanese games here, and well, I don't know how to read Pacifami in the Japanese menu because I only speak English, and now we need to translate that. So now we need a translation patch. Better get Yukon. Oh, that's another site. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is good. This is crazy. Like, this is why nobody knows about this, because you have to do, you have to go to a million different sites and kind of bend over backwards and really, really dig to try to find out how to just run a game on your computer. That's crazy. So I'm like, I got to find the site where everything's in one place, minus commercial games, right? Because I knew I wasn't going to find that all in one spot. It would get taken down because they were always getting taken down because of legal reasons. So when I finally realized there was no site that just had almost everything, I was like, well, I guess I got to go and figure out how to make one. Like, I was very much of the mind that if I can't solve the problem with something that exists, then I have to create a solution to the problem. That's how the idea of Zophar's domain began. Now, during that time, one of my favorite games, so obviously I've come to love Virtual Highlight, but at that time, in late 95 and early 96, my favorite video game of all time, and it still is, was Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. Lunar 2, for those not familiar, was a Sega CD game later ported to the PlayStation, technically a remake of the Saturn version. But it was originally on Sega CD in 95, and it had a final boss named Zophar, like the supreme evil trying to destroy the world. And the final dungeon in Lunar 2 Eternal Blue was Zophar's domain. And, we're talking, this is the mid 90s, and I'm into like Nine Inch Nails and Tool and Korn and Marilyn Manson. Like I had a phase where I dyed my hair black for a couple months. Like I was
think
in the whole,
you're a bit heavier
industrial
than
phase.
me, man. You're a bit. I was like
Little
Megadeth,
bit.
Metallica,
I,
Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains. But yeah, that stuff's
no,
the heavy
I went a
side.
level deeper. I was a level
Yeah,
deeper there.
definitely. I did like
And
some
so
Nine
like
Inch Nails stuff. So a friend of mine liked. So I did hear the albums around his house. There were some good tracks.
No doubt. And actually, the very first sound file I ever downloaded in MIDI format was Head Like a Hole. It was called HDLKHOLE.MID because back then, everything was DOS and it had the 8.3 character limit. If you remember that, you can have 8 characters and then 3 letters for an extension.
Ah, okay.
So it looked like it said like Hidlikalol, but that was the first MIDI I ever had. So I was like, oh wow, that's actually how I found out about Nine Inch Nails, from a MIDI.
Ah, okay.
But
Sorry, which Luna was it you like, so I can get a little bit of eye candy on? Was it Eternal Blue or the Silver?
the game is Eternal Blue, top
Eternal
one.
Blue, cool. No worries.
Yeah, that one right
Hopefully it's
there.
got a good intro sequence.
Yeah, it's that, and Lunar 1 has a really good intro as well.
Cool.
Lunar 1 will do like a whole music video and everything. So I'm in, like I said, I'm in my dark evil phase. So I'm like, all right, this sounds like a good idea. I'll just name myself Zophar, and I'm gonna create an emulator site called Zophar's Domain that's gonna strive to put as much legally as I possibly can in one spot. And if you think about that era, companies were starting to come up with this stuff too. Like think about like the rise of Walmart and Target, retailers where instead of having specialty retailers where you'd go here for this kind of stuff, you'd go here for, your blankets, and you'd go here for your food and here for your toys. They started creating these retailers that would just have everything in one spot. So that was happening at the same time. So that also was an influence on my my
Okay,
ideas
so
so far.
you're like the digital version of like a supermart that's out there that did everything all under one roof.
Exactly right. But it just seemed like it made sense. It seemed logical, and I was like shocked. Like, why did nobody think of this yet? Somebody's got to have thought of it. So then, as I got deeper in, I realized, I think, why no one had thought of it. I'm like, this is a lot of work. I'm sitting here and I don't know, like I was, like I said, I was in high school. The closest we had to teaching kids about anything computer related was my high school had a Mac lab, and they had 1984 style Macs in 1995 and 96. This is what they were using. I grew up in Philly, and that's what they had. So I'm like, I'm not going to learn anything about how to make a web page, from my Mac class where they're teaching us how to use McPaint and color in things in black and white. It wasn't even color. It was a black and white. If you remember the 1984 Mac, it was all black and white. I'm like, this is not teaching me anything. So computer class, unfortunately, was kind of worthless for me for this endeavor. So I did what any good retro community member would do. I just started reverse engineering everything. And to do that with a web page, I literally went there and I looked at the source, the HTML source, for Node 99 and Archaic Ruins and other sites, and I just started looking at what they were doing. This is how I learned any HTML. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, if you put a little less than sign, an A, and an HREF, I don't know what the hell it stands for. By the way, decades later, I still don't know what the hell HREF stands for. Probably something reference. But I'm like, I know that if I type that in and I put it in quotes and I put a link, it will let me click it. All right, cool. That's how it started. I'm dead serious. I literally was in Notepad, Microsoft Notepad, in 1996, and I was creating a very, very, very basic version of Zophar's Domain. And eventually, it went up for a week on GeoCities. Do you remember GeoCities? Were you around for that?
It rings a bell. Was that, if I take it somewhere where you can host websites or host pages? Is that correct? I'm just
Correct.
cool.
You got it. So GeoCities was was a free hosting page where you could basically make a web page. They only gave you a certain amount of space. It was not much. I want to say maybe it was like 5 megabytes. It was like a really tiny number.
Mm.
You really had to get creative back then. And it was a really weird URL, like geocities.com/Times Square /7082, or I'm making up numbers right now, but it was almost like designed as like a neighborhood. And so like technology was in this neighborhood, and video games were in that neighborhood, and health is in this neighborhood, and then you'd have different numbers. So it's like you're going to an address. This is how people thought of the World Wide Web in 1995 and
It
96.
was still in a
So
phase where they were adapting, learning, trying to find out what the norm was. So you had a lot of you had like a you had lots of different approaches, I guess, until we got the right approach.
exactly. Yeah, there you go. Laxter just said it. I'm looking at YouTube chat now.
Oh, wicked.
Hyperlink reference. Thank you. So you just taught Zophar of Zophar's domain something that he never knew, that stands for hyperlink reference. So like this is why, like, if you've ever come to my streams or any of that stuff, I always make it a point whenever people are like, "Oh, Zophar," I'm like, "Hey, I appreciate you, but," and then I'll always talk about who worked on that site with me, the real heroes, because I had in my head what I wanted to do. Like I knew what I wanted it to look like. I knew what it needed to have. I knew what I wanted to do to get outreach and get people knowing about it. But how to actually do it, I had no freaking idea. I had no idea. I didn't have that knowledge. So I did the best I could with what I had, and I looked at HTML, sources, and I just started pasting stuff in to learn how to do some of it as basic as I could. And then I found some really awesome people. The first 2 people that worked on Zophar's domain with me were Evil Homer and Infi. Evil Homer, I don't know his real name, but Evil Homer actually was a gentleman who was he was an artist, and he did computer art, graphic arts. And I said to him, "Hey, could you help overhaul my GeoCities page? I want to like really start, telling people about Zophar's domain and bring emulation to as many people as I can, but it looks like crap. It looks terrible. I don't know what I'm doing." It was just a page with a bunch of red text and crappy cells. I'm like, "Can you create something for me?" So he's like, "Well, I have some ideas. What did you have in mind?" And we started talking about how cool it would be, because I was a big Sega fan. Sega is still my favorite company to this day. And I was like, could we do something where like maybe like we have like a Sega Game Gear like on the front page, and like you can like hover over it and click stuff? Like, could you do that? Which of course at the time that was called an image map. I didn't even know the name for it. But I'm like, can we do something like that? He's like, yeah, we can create something like that. He's like, I have some ideas. Let me go see what I can do. And he came back with such an awesome design. Now I have this design. So on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Zophar1, it's in some of my videos, like at the very end, where you can see what it looked like. And I have a complete archive of the original 1996-7 era Zophar's domain, and 98 and 99 for that matter. I have a complete archive of it. And it had literally a logo in red that said Zophar's domain, and then "Welcome to my domain, mortals," because again, I'm Lunar too. And then it had the Game Gear underneath with different pages, different links. It had 6 sections. Let's see if I can remember them. It was Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, Arcade, and Sega Master System. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah, those were the original 6 emulator pages for Zophar's domain. And you would just take your mouse and you would hover over the image, and it would you could click it. And that might not sound like much in 2025, but in 1996, I'm like, holy crap, wow, man, look at the site. And they're like, oh, you can hover over the graphic and it clicks different things. Whoa, man. Like, this is like high-tech stuff.
The Simpsons TV show started out on a wing and a prayer, but now
What the?
was fire, and the prayer had been answered by Satan.
Was that you or me?
I think that was you, dude. I've even just put down
Oh, I think I see what's happening. Somebody, okay, so I run a bot that's like always running. Well, not now, I just closed it.
Okay,
but I have a
cool.
bot that runs my stream. And somebody went into my Twitch chat, even though I'm not streaming, the chat's
okay.
always listening, and they typed in a bot command.
Got you,
I see you.
There. Cool. So trolled live on it. So you had the Game Gear thing down there with lots of the other stuff. So where did it go from there? So you started. So you had like a good way, like a good kind of visual indicator where you clicked it, you went into menus. So you started getting, you started putting emulators on there. So what was the next thing? How did you, so the next step when you thought, okay, you know what, I've got emulators on there. When did the traffic start coming into it? Because when I remember it, it didn't look like I remember it as like Zophar's. I don't ever remember it being linked to like that GeoCities website that you said.
Yeah. No, because nobody knew about it at that point. In fact, when I tell people that it was founded on November 9th, 1996, technically it was really more like October 23rd. But I don't bring that up because, like I said, it was on GeoCities for 2 weeks. It was being created. It was total trash. It was basically like, welcome to my webpage. Like it was stupid. So nobody knew what it was at that point. It started getting more popular once we got into early 1997 in February. So this would have been 3 or 4 months after it was on the original, post GeoCities, which was ZipLink. And in February, you might remember a little Nintendo emulator came out called Nesticle that changed everything. And the reason why it changed everything is back to what I was telling you about Zophar's domain, making it accessible. It had an interface, right? Just like how Zophar's domain would put everything in one place, and you just all you need to do is go to Zophar's domain, and there's all your news, and there's all your emulators, and here's utilities to do stuff, and here's translation patches. With Nesticle, all you got to do is download Nesticle, get the game, load it, and you knew what to do. Like you intuitively knew in 1995. That if you see in the upper left corner a menu that says file and options and about, like you knew what that meant. I'm like, okay, file, that's how you would load something. Let me go to file, load ROM. There's my game. Holy crap, it's just working. Whoa, it has sound. The sound is actually good, which again, it was good for 1997 compared to what there was. Pacifami had no sound at the time. INES had sound, but it was pretty bad. And that's no disrespect to the emulator authors. Again, they were just figuring everything out, reverse engineering things. So it started to really gain traction in 97. The day that Iser Addis, he had a bunch of different names back then. He was Kronk at one point. He was Sardu at one point from Blood-Sucking Freaks. Anyways, we're getting in the weeds. But
that was a weird movie. I regret watching that as a kid.
He was into like interesting, strange, horror, which is cool. So was I. But so he, he's getting everyone's all excited about it, and so word started to travel about Nesticle. And where could you get Nesticle? Well, there was this website you could go to, which was his on the Bloodlust software site. Or you could go to Zophar's domain and a bunch of other sites too. There were other sites at this time that were starting to come up that had a lot of news. You started to get sites, over time, like Jose Q's Emu Views, and you had Dave's Classics, later known as Vintage Gaming, and Emu News came later. But at that time, Zophar's domain was in the right place at the right time. We had already begun to establish ourselves months prior, so we got to essentially ride the wave of Nesticle. We were perfectly positioned at that point. And since I had befriended him online, I had talked to Iser and we would chat all the time, and he was into a lot of the same music as me, like Nine Inch Nails, Tool, Marilyn Manson. He listened to all that stuff too. So we kind of had like an online friendship for a while. And I would beta test his emulators for him. So I would get information that I could put on Zophar's domain ahead of time that no one else would have. No one else would know it. So that also helped to, solidify it as the place to go. So to answer your question, I thought was kind of long-winded. When did it start becoming popular? It was in 1997, in February, that it really started to gain traction and to take off. The first 3 to 4 months was a lot more of me just learning how the heck things worked, getting a web page up there, learning how to update it, how to assemble a team, right? I mentioned Evo Homer was our graphic artist in the beginning. We brought on Infi at the same time, and he did a lot of our CGI programming in Perl. I don't know if you remember the programming language Perl. I couldn't do a thing in it, but he was able to do cool stuff like polls. I love polls. I love to know what people think about stuff. So we created Zophar's polling domain, a little drop-down menu. You click it, and I would poll people on what they want to see. What do you think of the graphics? What do you think of this new logo? We were constantly evolving and changing and updating the site. And Infi was responsible for all of that. We had a message board system, if you remember message boards, forums.
I love message boards. They're
Yep.
dead now. Reddit killed them, but they're amazing.
Yeah, Reddit. Ugh. But yeah, 100% agree. You understand.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
100% agreed. It was awesome. And again, like I said, we didn't know what the heck we were doing in the beginning. My message boards got hacked. The site got hacked the first few months. Like, and when I
Sorry,
say
did you
hacked,
say
it's
you got
like
hacked? Zophar's domain got
yeah,
hacked.
but when I use the word hacked, like we're talking like there was so little security. Like for example, we used a message board. I want to say it might have been called www threads, but don't quote me on that. I'd really have to check my files to see.
Mhm.
And this particular, and if I'm using the wrong one, I apologize. I'm not trying to badmouth any programmer from 1996. Again, we were all learning. But in order for the message board system to work, the permissions had to be set in Unix as 777 for the password file, which was in plain text. Now, do you understand what I've just told you?
So the password was visible to anyone.
The password was visible to anyone. Yes. I didn't know that. I was a kid. I'm in high school. I have no idea. That's how it was supposed to work. That's what it said. It said, make sure you go into Unix and chmod 777
And
password.txt. I'm dead serious.
oh, crazy. So here's
It's so funny to
something.
think about now.
So we started, me and Anime Otaku started a website, I think about a month ago now. And like from the first day onwards, we get at least 400 attempts at hacking. But obviously a lot of them go for the name admin, obviously, which is the first thing we did before we launched was to change that and put in some good measures in place. But it's still amazing. You get people trying to hack sites like every day, and you probably still get that on your current site, I imagine.
Oh yeah, it's I'm certain that it does, although I do have we can get into it in a little bit about the current iteration of Zophar's domain. So things are a little bit different now, as far as my involvement with it. But during my time when I actively ran it and I actively owned it in 96 to 2000, there were many attempts. There were in the in the very beginning they were successful when it came to the message board. The way that they would get in was always through some kind of flaw in the way that the programs were made. So like usually it was done in Perl, like it was Perl CGI. So everything that was in that CGI bin folder that is controlling my forums and controlling my poll and controlling the displaying of the news, like that was the stuff that would usually get targeted. And it was always a struggle for me to find somebody that, and Infi did a great job, by the way. Again, we were all kids. But I didn't have that understanding. Like I couldn't like they would do something and then I would say, how did they get in? Oh, the password was in plain text. Oops. Like these are things I just didn't know. I had no idea. I had literally no idea. So it was the early attempts, they were in the beginning, they were successful a few times. And it took me, finding the right people, and they would get more experienced. Later we had a gentleman come in named Sam. That's a whole other ball of wax that took over for a lot of the programming, a lot of the CGI stuff, and made the site a lot more secure. So that absolutely was that was happening in the beginning, no doubt.
Wow. Okay, so with the site now, what's the kind of so from there, right? So now with the site now, what's the kind of main so it's emulation news. Do you guys link to emulators as well? Let me bring up the site again. And as well as that, like what's the biggest feature of the website now? Is it actually the music archiving? Is that the biggest thing that you host on there now?
Yeah, so let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the transition. So, um, during the heyday of Zophar's domain, yeah, emulators were the big draw and the way to play the games. But then towards the last year and a half, so I love music. I was in a choir for years when I was a kid. I played the violin, I played the drums. Like I love music. I don't think I can really sing that well anymore. Like ask my chat, I'll tell you. But I love music, and like in my head, I understand like what note is what, and I understand all that stuff. And so video game music was really, really important to me. In fact, we were just talking about virtual highlight. Like, what exactly is the appeal Zophar sees? It's not the graphics, it's not the frame rate. I mentioned to you I love the randomization and the controls, but there's one other thing I love too, and that's the soundtrack. If you actually listen to the virtual highlight soundtrack, it's actually pretty good. It's all a lot of it is like especially some of the stuff in the volcano sounds like metal. It sounds like Metallica, like Call of Cthulhu. Since you said Metallica,
Nice, nice.
like some of the tracks are really good, like really rocking. So like for me, a lot of the enjoyment of a video game comes from its soundtrack. And this is why, like, with all the stuff you see me talk, like, if you watch my streams and, I'm always playing stuff like Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Sega CD, I never play Atari. I think I played ET like 4 years ago, but I almost never play Atari because Atari didn't really have much in the way of a soundtrack, right? Like the hardware it was one channel PC speaker type sound. Like the
Yeah, yeah.
infrastructure
When you go
wasn't
Atari
there.
2600, you had like blip blop, and then when you would go
Right, it's
to
just bleeps
Atari
and bloops.
800, you
Yeah,
had blip
and
blop beep.
occasionally you'll get like little like hints of music, like Sorcerer's Apprentice, do 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 do, and then over and over, and it just makes you want to just jump off a bridge. So so the appeal for me was music. So that last year to year and a half when I was actively running Zophar's domain, which would have been 1999 and 2000, like that era, a little bit of 98 too. I started to archive soundtracks on Zophar's domain. Now, it's interesting because back then, there was no Apple Music or iTunes or Spotify. There was no YouTube. There was none of that. And most game publishers didn't really sell their music on CD. In Japan, they were doing it, but in the US, there wasn't really a lot of that. The first time I can tell you that I actually remember a video game publisher bundling a soundtrack with something, it was Working Designs. It was in the late 90s with Lunar 1 and Lunar 2. They released a selected tunes from from Lunar and Lunar 2, and you could just pop your CD and hear the music, right? So I was like, it'd be really cool if we could do something like that for like NES and Super Nintendo. Like they weren't releasing the soundtracks here, so how else are we gonna be able to enjoy them?
So
So I started talking with some of the emulator authors, and they created ways to essentially dump what's in the sound chip's memory. Like for example, Super Nintendo, ZSNES with ZS Night. He created a way where you could just dump the SPC files out of there, which is basically everything that's in the SPC 700's RAM. 64K of RAM is what it could hold at a time. It would just dump that, and now you have the entire soundtrack to,
okay, so
Chrono
that's what
Trigger or
that's what I was
whatever it
going to
is.
ask you. I was going to say, how did you extract the soundtrack? Did you have to play it real time and record it, or was there a way to extract this? So you could just extract this, so you didn't have to play everything real time. There was a way to extract the soundtrack out from the game
Yeah,
without
so
listening to it. Okay.
depending on the system you're talking about. So like for the Super Nintendo, for example, you could just dump the contents of the SPC 700. For the Sega Genesis in the beginning, Icer hadn't really worked out an easy way to do it, so he implemented something called GYM logging. It's an obsolete format now, but it was called GYM, which stood for Genesis YM, the YM2612 being the chip in the Sega Genesis. And that you had to essentially dub. So you would have to, for that one, you would have to load the game, start the sound, and just start logging it in GYM format. It was sloppy, but that was what we had. That was what we had in the beginning. And then later on, I think it was the VGM format. Don't quote me on that. I think it was VGM that acted a lot more the way the SPC format worked, where you could just dump the contents of the RAM. So depending on the system, Super Nintendo at the time was the easiest. You would just dump it right from emulator, right from ZSNES, and just go. And then once you had all your SPCs from the different tracks in the game dumped, you could RAR was a really good format. If you did RAR solid archiving, now all of a sudden the entire soundtrack of Chrono Trigger might just take up like 90 kilobytes.
Wow.
So it was a pretty cool time. And then we even had, a lot of people don't remember this. So I was saving some of this for my Zophar's Retro Rewind series on YouTube, of which I've only released like 2 episodes because I'm slow.
I really like that actually.
But
When are we getting the next one? Because I know the production value is really high, so I imagine it take a bit of time.
Yeah, that's kind of the struggle, is that it just takes for me to do it the way, how I told you, like everything's in my head. Unlike Zophar's domain, where I had dozens and dozens of amazing people helping, with Zophar's Retro Rewind, it's just me and my brother. My brother did the editing for the first 2 episodes, and he did all the videography. So the 3rd episode is shot. I have over an hour of footage that's all shot 4K, looks great, good to go. But it needs to be edited, and I'm just dragging my feet because it just takes so much time. Because
it does.
In addition to the YouTube stuff, in addition to streaming on Twitch 5 days a week, in addition to sometimes doing like these kind of interviews, I also have a full-time job that I work about 50 hours a week, 5 days a week. So it's and I'm married with a kid, so it's really I don't sleep a lot.
Well,
it's crazy.
See, in my vision in my head is just very, very basic. It's like run the game, talk some crap, cut it, put an intro, put an outro, bang, 2 o'clock, and I put out another subpar video.
Good to
I'm not
go.
into the heavy editing, man.
That's my Twitch approach. Go on to Twitch, click start streaming, and start yelling and "Young mortals, pirates Zophar here," and just
You know
play the
what?
game.
But that's the beauty of streaming. So, like, when it comes to streaming, so earlier on I did a video on something that's not released yet. I got early access to it, so I won't say what it is yet. But the video will release on the 1st of September. So I put in a little bit of effort to that, and that took me 2 hours. And when you do a stream, you literally turn it on. You go into, you are yourself when you're streaming, but there's always a little bit of a persona that you use online, and you go into that, and it's so much fun. And when you finish, you just press stop and that's it. You're finished. There's no editing. There's not really much to do. It's done.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. And that's probably the approach that I should take for YouTube. But like, I don't know. I sit there. I'm like, oh, what if I did this? Oh, this needs a graphic. Let me go put a little picture in there. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had like the IRC chat from 97 and 98, like how it looked? Because I have all the logs from 98 onwards. Like, let me make it look like that. And then I would say, hey, my brother G Levy, I'd be like, hey, G Levy, can you do this? How about this? I was driving him berserk. That last episode, so we only have 2 episodes, but the second episode, which is all about speedrunning in the 90s on Zophar's domain with my NSM contest, that was the Nesticle movie format. Like, I'm like giving him files every other day, like, hey, put this in here. Hey, I just recorded a voiceover for The Legend of Zelda, put this in here. Hey, I want this music in here. Like, the soundtrack is created by Inverse Phase, who did our stream intro. Like, I commissioned them for that. So I'm like, hey, put this music in. All right, now for the intro, I'm gonna have the streamer Rat707. She's gonna do the voiceover for it. So it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it takes a lot of time. So I almost feel like I should probably take a different approach for future episodes. But then on the other hand, it's like I've already set this precedent for the first 2 episodes, so I don't want to like disappoint people by having like a more lo-fi, version of the series. But on the other hand, I'm 45 years old. I'm not ancient, but like I'm not, a kid anymore. And I just know that the more time this takes me to do, like eventually I'll start forgetting stuff. So I do want to, try to pick up the pace of it. So to answer your question, when's it coming out? It'll come out before the end of the year. I promise you that.
This year, yeah.
Beyond that,
this year.
Beyond that, we'll see.
this actual year, yeah. 2025.
This actual year, yep.
All right,
yep.
okay. So I was going to make a funny point about setting, when you set the bar high and to go low. And for that, I have a solid approach. So like I've been off work for 2 weeks and I've been getting emails from the person covering me. And I'm a little bit gutted. And I always tell them, stop setting the bar too high. When you do that, people expect that of you. Don't get me wrong. I don't underperform, but I don't go head over heels above because people start expecting that. So when it comes to raising the bar, I keep that bar low, baby.
I hear you. But to get back to the other part of your question about the soundtracks, so that we had 3 different types of music towards the end of my tenure, which were Nintendo, that was NSFs at the time, Genesis, which was GYMs, and then we also had Super Nintendo, which were SPC, and then I think we added Callus CYM. Callus, a lot of people don't remember it. That was an arcade emulator for CPS-1 games, Capcom System 1, so like Street Fighter 2, Punisher, like those kind of games. And we had those soundtracks up too. And then I left Zophar's domain in 2000, and there's a whole bunch of reasons which will be explored in the Retro Rewind episode too eventually.
Okay. So
but,
when you left it, did the site go or did the site continue? Was Zophar's domain continuous through that era?
It was nearly always continuous. There was a brief amount of time. So the person that we'll say the person that I passed the site / sold the site to, I'll say it that way, that individual took down Zophar's domain like maybe a year or 2 later for a brief amount of time. And there was a lot of public outcry about why did you do that? And they put it back up. I think they cited time constraints and things like that, life getting in the way, blah, blah, blah.
So
which is part of why
Did they want to change it?
Sorry?
Did they want to change the site to something else to keep the content, keep everything in there, keep the visitors, but give it like a facelift? Why would they? Would they going for a rebrand?
I think he didn't care anymore about it. Is what happened. I don't want to.
Okay.
I mean, I will speak for him because it's whatever at this point. I just think he lost interest and wanted to do other things. And for me, I wanted there to be a legacy. Like I wasn't this forward looking. Like I wasn't thinking 25 years later it's still there, but I was thinking at least like I don't want it to be all right, I'm out of time because I mean we were at the height of popularity when I was running it. I mean, we were getting 50,000 views a day just to the main page. Like I can't even give you a
Wow.
number if you add all of the pages together how many we were getting, but 50,000 a day to just index.html. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's so like I knew that the site was pretty big and that people knew about it and people were using it for all things emulation. And so I wanted it to continue on. I had at that point like 11 or 12 people that were working on it with me. And I didn't want to just leave everyone high and dry and hey, I don't have time anymore. I want to raise a family. I want to get a job that allows me to move out and find a house and get a car and like sorry everybody, Zophar's Domain's dead. Like
So was it
there
was
are
it
people that do that and I'm not slighting them at all, but like I'm not doing that. So I picked up the person that I thought would continue it forward. And there's, we can have debates about that, all day long about my choice and regrets I may or may not have. But what I will say happened was after those couple of years that that person was running the site, they then sold it to someone else. His name was Edman. So this would have been in maybe like 2007, 2008. And he brought a team of people in. Martini and Azio Free are two of the big ones right now that are keeping that site alive, especially Martini. I talk to Martini all the time. Sometimes he pops in my stream. Sometimes I talk to him on Discord. He is the reason, along with Edman and Azio Free, that Zophar's Domain is still up today. I've been asked before, like, hey, Zophar, would you ever like go back? Like I could post on there. Like I can submit a post for the news page right now if I wanted to. It has to be approved by Martini, ironically, right? That's pretty funny. Zophar's Domain. Zophar has to get approval for the post. But like, I could post there. I just don't have the time. Now you understand why all the things I just told you that I do,
Mhm.
streaming, YouTube, full-time job, family. Like people have said, would you ever take Zophar's Domain back? Oh, I've got a ton of ideas on what I would do with Zophar's Domain. But A, there's just not enough time. And B, the situation when it comes to the soundtracks has greatly changed. We went from the site having a few, sound sections, which I, was big on. Like I love music, like I told you, to now there's soundtracks going all the way up to like Xbox 360 and PS3 on there. So to run Zophar's Domain, for me to go and purchase or otherwise that site back, brings up a whole other bunch of, we'll say, legal questions about soundtracks that I just don't think is a good idea for me to take on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, no, I get that. Without going too
Yeah.
deeply into it, I get it. So do you think ever at any point, so let's say around 2000 or around a year where you were still on it and you were getting those 50,000 visits minimum a day, do you think at that point you could have potentially capitalized on that and maybe made it into something very commercial or sold it to a commercial company that would have maybe turned it into something else?
So yes, I did, and I did think about that. But so here was my thought process. So first off, when it comes to commercialization, I found a way to get income for Zophar's Domain the final year to year and a half of it, like 99 to mid 2000 before I left. I worked out a deal with the server owner. He ran a company called ZTNet, and the deal was essentially we would run advertising, which was little banners at the top of the pages, and he would take a cut. A cut would go towards bandwidth costs because a lot of people don't think about this, but back then, until I got the deal with ZTNet with Zophar.net, I was paying, Zophar, was paying to keep that site up. Bandwidth was not cheap. It was expensive. It started out with me paying $20 a month on ZipLink. And then a few years later, it came out to like $60 a month for DSL. And then it was $100 a month. And like, as it got more popular, like it was expensive. Like I'm a kid. Like I was 16 years old when I founded this site. Like I wasn't an adult yet. And I was paying to keep Zophar's Domain up. So to commercialize it, to try to get some sort of income, was not just like the natural order of it was necessary. Like if I was going to keep running it, so I did find a way to commercialize it for that last year and a half. But then what I did, I thought, all of these awesome people that are helping, not just helping, but like they're doing a ton of work. They're updating the news page, just like if you look at Zophar's domain, if you go back to the archives, like I'm not the only one posting on there. Infy's posting, Alamone's posting, Swamp Gas is posting, Stick Figure, Nitro, Zip, No Maniac, like everyone's posting and uploading, and one person would maintain the save state section, another one would maintain the music section, and so I'm like, I can't keep all of this for myself. That's ridiculous. Like that's wrong. So I took 90% of all of the advertising income and I gave it to everyone that helped work on the site. Now, of course, the problem with this is it created a situation where, because there were so many of us, right? I said, by the end, I think it was like 11 or 12 people, like splitting that 11 and 12 ways, 90% of it basically meant the most that anybody would ever get in a month, maybe $100, $150 sometimes. That's it. Like, you can't live off $150 a month. Like that's silly, and that's about what I ended up, keeping generally of the income. It wasn't much.
Okay. So it was more like you've got your hobby, you like what you're doing, and you're getting. It's like the YouTube ad revenue I get. It's not life changing, but every
Yes.
month when I get it, I think, you know what, kids, what toy do you want? Wife, what food do you want? And my wife will just be, nah, just give me the cash.
Yep. And exactly. And that's why, like, I don't, and this is again why YouTube's taking so long. Like, if I really, really went for it, like I could find an editor, but then here we go. Like, I'm spending money, because the editor's not going to do that for free. Like, we're not kids anymore, right? We're adults. And that's likely who I would find, they deserve to be paid for their work. And,
Of course.
I have to take that money and I have to, pay my mortgage and pay the bills and, take my family, to dinner sometimes. I use that for my life. So but so to answer your question, I know I'm very long-winded.
Mate,
I
go
talk a
for it.
lot.
I'm loving it.
But
The guys are loving it. The numbers of people viewing are increasing. You're all good. Knock
good.
yourself out.
I'm glad you are all enjoying it. To conclude your question, I had thought about selling it to someone that would just make it completely commercial, and that's what I actually did. Because the person that I sold it to was the one person on my staff that had a very business-minded, we'll say a business mindset. And unfortunately, as it turned out, there were some really big philosophical differences in what the person ended up doing. Like, they did some things, like, for example, they within months, they started selling copying backup devices. A Game Boy, I want to say a Game Boy FlashLink piece of hardware. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh,
He just
okay.
started selling it on Zophar's domain.
Oof.
What do
So
you think
that's,
happened? What do you think Nintendo thought about that?
yeah, wow. Did Nintendo get in touch on that, or did it go as far
So
as Nintendo? Or
I can only tell you what he told everyone, and I have text of what he pasted, which is that Nintendo did send him a cease and desist letter in the early 2000s to discontinue selling those copiers, or they would take action, and he did so. He discontinued it. It was kind of at that point where, like, any hope or any thought of me, like, one day getting, going back to Zophar's domain, I was like, I don't really think that's a good idea right now. Like, he's taking it in a direction that I just don't, just not the direction I wanted to take it in, if that makes sense.
do you know what?
So,
Something really funny happened there. My display just went off, and I think what happened was the fault on Nintendo. My HD my Elgato capture card just had almost committed suicide. So I had to
oh
quickly
geez,
deactivate and activate.
Nintendo's
Yeah,
watching. They're watching you, man.
the screen went black. I was like, no, the stream's not dead. No, the stream's healthy. But something just happened there. Sometimes it happens with weird, like a quick frequency change or something. You just need to
You
deactivate and
look.
activate. But it happened when you mentioned
Just
Nintendo
gotta.
Ninjas. So
You
this is too
just
much
gotta
of a
keep.
damn coincidence.
No, Pixel. No, you just got to keep playing Sega games. Keep showing Sega games, and
Here
you'll
we
be
are now.
fine.
So this
Keep
is one of my
Nintendo. There,
favorite
you got
ones.
Golden Axe. You're
Golden
fine
Axe,
now.
man.
See?
Absolutely, absolutely love this game. Played it in the arcade, and I didn't play this so much on the Mega Drive. I definitely preferred the arcade version to the Mega Drive. But heck, man, the Mega Drive. See, I got an appreciation for the Mega Drive when I got older. When I was a kid, I was like, nah, Super Nintendo's better. Street Fighter 2 looks better on there. Super Mario World is better. I mean, I still prefer Super Mario World to the Sonic games, but like now, because of like I grew up a lot playing in the arcade. I had the PC Engine as well at one point, which is my favorite console. But when I got older, I was like, why the heck didn't I appreciate all the arcade games that were available for the Mega Drive? Got, you know, Golden Axe being one of the big ones. E-SWAT is another one. Altered Beast. Like, why didn't I like this as much as I did? And you know, when I had the choice of one, I went Super Nintendo. And I guess for the time, I was very happy with the console.
Yeah, it's so the PC Engine, since you brought that up, which in the US was the TurboGrafx 16. I had a friend that had one. I never owned one, but I loved like the graphics on that were great. Like as much as I love the Sega Genesis, the TurboGrafx 16 had far better graphics. I think it was because of the color palette. I think the Sega Genesis was only able to display, what is it, 64 colors at a time, where I think the TG16 could display 256, kind of similar to the Super Nintendo, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
Okay.
But I loved, like, I would play Bonk's Adventure at my friend's house, and Dragon Spirit was a fun one. And Blazing Lasers was another
Oh,
one,
I love
which I
Blazing
never beat.
Lasers, man. See, I
Uh,
know that as Gunhead. So, Bonk's Adventure I knew as PC Kid. So I had, because we never officially had it in the UK, so I had the Japanese import. And what was really interesting was when I was buying games for that, it was pot luck. Like I had no idea. I had to pick a game based on the Hue card. Very rarely that I don't even think I might have had one or two box games. All the games were unboxed. So sometimes I'd get like a really good game, like Gunhead, for example, or Blazing Lasers, or other times I'd get like some text heavy game and I'd be gutted and I have to go back to the shop and they wouldn't do a refund or an exchange. They'd say, nope, you get trading value for it. So I'd have to trade it back in and get another game. It was fun though, trying to figure out a game, like literally trying to judge a book by its cover, or trying to judge a game by its Hue card.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I also liked, excuse me, I liked the concept of the Hue card. I mean, the rest of us are blowing on our cartridges trying to make the thing work, and the Hue card format was pretty reliable. I mean, did you ever have an issue where you'd put the Hue card
I
in
can
and it wouldn't read
honestly
the
I
system?
can honestly tell you that in my entire life I have never blown a Hue card.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, that was good,
Um,
and they look so damn cool, man. Like they just looked wicked, like a little card, really good artwork on there. The boxes were like CD cases, weren't they? They were freaking amazing, man. Like looking at a game, and I get a lot of nostalgia looking at Hue cards. I don't own a single one now, but I get a lot of nostalgia looking at them because they just look so damn cool, man. Whenever I look at them online, I'm like, wow, I remember that.
Yep, yep. I think that the TG16, I think the problem with it was not the system. I think the marketing in the US just sucked. Like just
Okay.
to put it bluntly, I don't think they marketed it properly. I think that everyone was you know, all the rage about, you know, Sega with Sonic and then Nintendo, right, with Mario.
I mean, it was
And
a
I just
difficult
don't
sell, wasn't it, with those two, with how much they've been established, and this one.
correct. And Bonk was like cool, but Bonk wasn't Sonic and Bonk wasn't Mario. So I think that it was a combination of bad marketing and they just didn't have the mascot like Sega and Nintendo had. Like Bonk was the closest thing they had, and it just, you know,
There
he
was
wasn't the
there was
same.
a little kid with a
He was a
big
kid with a
head and
caveman
that liked to eat like
club.
big meat and explode and whatnot. But Bonk 1, see, people always tell me to play Bonk 2, but Bonk 1 was a game that I had, and I absolutely love that game. You know, going back to it now as well, still like it, still play it from time to time. Just a great
Yep.
game, man. Another game to
Yep.
check out on this, Sun Son 2. That's really, really good. Actually, let's get some eye candy on.
Yeah, no doubt. But then in the US, Sega was the big one, right? I think the problem was Sega was so big in the US, but they weren't nearly in Japan, at least during the Genesis era. And so like so many decisions that ended up killing Sega from hardware were, I think, because Sega of Japan could not get on the same page with Sega of America. And then when they brought Bernie Stolar in, that was the end. Like that was
So
worst decision Sega ever
are we
made.
talking like the Dreamcast era where Sega, it just, that obviously that's where Sega started going
Well,
downhill
well,
from a hardware
the
perspective.
well, the Dreamcast era was actually great. The problem was the damage that Sega had done to themselves with everything that was released from the Sega 32X through the Saturn. The problem with the Sega, so this was what happened, in my opinion. So the Sega Genesis, very popular in the US from 91, 92, 93, 94. Like that was the cool system to have. Like, I remember like the Sega Nintendo wars, and I was very much a Sega kid. I did eventually get a Super Nintendo, but the Sega Genesis was the cool system for me. Like a sleek black system with little headphone jack for headphones, and it had a little volume slider, and just 16-bit like in your face was like written on there, and it's like the Genesis. Like, holy shit! Like, this is, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but like the Genesis, like this is where it starts. So, Sega does what Nintendo and all that, but then what did Sega do next? So they wanted to come out with a 3D system, and this is where everything started to go to hell, because they decided, and again, this is Sega of Japan, Sega of America not getting on the same page. Sega of Japan's developing the Saturn. Sega of America is like, oh, you know what, we gotta beat others to the punch, so we're gonna release the 32X. The 32X was trash. The 32X had like, what was it, 15 to 20 games. It wasn't a large library. And especially if you try to play a Sega CD 32X game, because that was a thing too, there were a few of those, you'd have to have 3 power adapters all plugged in at once and everything stacked upon everything.
Wow.
Which is cool as hell, but like very, very, very clunky, cluttery, and just not very logistically pleasing. So I didn't like the 32X. I didn't even buy it. I didn't bother with it. I knew the Saturn was coming out. Now, the Saturn I thought was great. The problem with the Saturn was Sega was making the Saturn to be primarily a 2D system. And then when they found out what Sony was doing with the PlayStation, Sega freaked out at the last minute. And and again, this is Sega of Japan and doing what they do. And they shoehorned in a bunch of 3D hardware to make it work.
That's really interesting.
They created a scenario that was very difficult to program for. This is what developers have said, that the Saturn, because it had literally 5 different processors, 2 graphics processors, 2 CPUs, and a sound processor, and they're all like working in parallel. And so it was really difficult to program for. And if you look, like, the Saturn really shines with 2D games. It can do 3D, but that's not what people remember, mainly the 2D stuff on there. And Sega really should have. Yeah, I agree with Ops and YouTube, by the way, that Sega went downhill because the Sega Japan DPS were not in line with each other. That's correct. So now the Saturn, they're trying to figure things out. They start to come out with some interesting games, right? Like Working Designs came over there. They're doing cool RPGs like Dragon Force and Albert Odyssey, and Shining Wisdom was neat. I liked Virtual Highlight, like I said. I know a lot didn't, and then you had like Shining, the Holy Ark. But then Bernie Stolar comes over after, doing what he did at Sony, and he comes over to Sega and he says, "Oh, the Saturn, we can't save this. Let's just kill it. Let's just have no system and work on the Dreamcast." Like, it's just idiotic. Like, okay, I'm not a video game designer. I am a manager though, and I cannot to this day understand. Like, maybe like he got really, really drunk one night and then decided that it would be a good idea to kill the Saturn. Like, maybe that's how it happened. But it was the worst decision that Sega ever made, was to give up on the Saturn less than 2 years into its lifetime. Can you imagine Sony like coming out with the PS5 and then deciding after 2 years, you know what, it's just not selling like we wanted it to. We're just going to kill it. We're not going to have any games for it anymore, and we're going to work on the PlayStation 6. That'll be out in 2 years. Could you imagine that? Sony would be done.
The only people that will do that is Microsoft. Right,
that's a Microsoft thing.
That's a Microsoft thing, not a Sony thing. But
honestly, I don't even think Microsoft, if I'm guessing here, I don't think they really care that Sony has taken so much more market share.
They're focusing on subscriptions now and services. They're just Xbox is dead. I mean, if you've got a decent PC, there is absolutely 0 point. And I've said this for years now, because every exclusive, Gears of War especially, that's one that I like, Forza, you've got essentially the better version on the PC, because you can tweak it more, you can get a better frame rate, you can get better visuals. So if you've got a decent PC, why the heck would you need an Xbox? There's zero reason.
And for those, like, because I do like, I have a Mac, so I do like to play console games, but the PS5 does that just fine. You don't need a PS5 and a new Xbox. You don't need 2 systems to do what they can do the same thing. Like, you don't need both. So, Microsoft has lost a ton of share to Sony because of that, but like you said, I don't think they care.
Yeah.
They got the subscription revenue.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so Sega, for whatever reason, like, and it's crazy because, like, they were doing so well. Like, Sega was in the US. Sega was doing better than Nintendo for a couple of years of the Super Nintendo era. They
Well,
were
I
selling
never knew
more.
that. But
They
in
were
the
selling
UK, I
more.
would definitely say, like, as far as, well, at least from what I saw from my area, my circles, Nintendo was the one that always did better on the NES,
That's how
on
it
the
was in most
SNES.
of the world.
Mm,
In most of the world, Nintendo did better, but in the US, Sega was winning because Sega
wow.
had the cool factor. And at that time, pop culture, I remember it well because I was here for it. Like Nintendo was like seen as like kiddie. Nintendo's for kids. You have like your little cutesy games, and it's kind of the cute little shooters and these cute little platformers. But then Sega's got Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Sonic the Hedgehog moving at lightning speed. Nintendo, like it was just they had it. They had the marketing and they had the system. They had it all. They literally had it all, and they just threw it away. It's
That's
it's the
nuts.
worst. Like it makes just talking about it annoys me because like
Well, I
it
remember
didn't have to be that
the
way, you
Saturn
know?
completely flopped in the UK. Like, I hardly knew anyone with it. The only time I actually had a Saturn, I didn't officially have one. When I had a game shop, someone traded one in, and we're talking about like they traded it in for £10 or £20. Like, it was pretty worthless. I took it home. For some reason, I couldn't get it working. I don't know if it needed a battery or something, so I couldn't get it working. So I kind of brushed it aside. Now, initially, I did play Panzer Dragoon in a video game shop when the Saturn first launched, and I was blown away by it. It just looked amazing, Panzer Dragoon. It was like, wow. And this is the era when we were, like you said, PlayStation came out, we were moving into 3D, and everything had those ugly polygons. We were looking at them, and I was like, wow. So when Sega Saturn, like you said, it was primarily designed with 2D games in mind, 3D last minute. All the 2D, it wasn't getting the releases the PlayStation was. So it was like, nah, forget that. And that's what everyone thought. Now, on the MiSTerFPGA, as SRG 320 was developing the Sega Saturn core and kind of going along with it, I was like, bloody hell. Like, I love this system. And, often I go to say that it's likely my favorite core on the MiSTerFPGA because it's a system I know literally next to nothing of. And there's so many games on there. And a lot of that is because I have a strong bias towards arcade. And it gives me lots of arcade games where we don't currently have arcade cores. And, for example, like the Taito F3 games that are on there, like Elevator Action, Bubble Symphony. There's another game, I don't think it's Taito F3, it's called Guardian Force. Now, when I go into, especially Guardian Force, when you go into MAME and play it, it feels like you're playing the damn thing underwater. It feels like a swimming simulator. And that's no disrespect to MAME, because I use MAME, I use Final Burn Neo, but you can feel the input latency. It's got a lot of delay. And the Saturn version is so damn snappy, man. I absolutely love the Saturn, and I'm very, very glad I've rediscovered it in like my mid 40s.
Yeah, the Saturn's a great system. It had a lot of great games. It did some really interesting, innovative things, and I still have mine. Unfortunately, the CD drive is going on it again. But I do have the satiator, so I can just load them in that way
Oh,
and still
nice.
enjoy them
Have you got the
on real
Saru? Is it the
hardware.
Saru, the
So,
ODE?
n-
That's very popular.
so no, I don't use the Saru. I actually use the satiator. The satiator is the one that, if you look in the back of the Saturn where the battery is, the watch
Hmm.
battery, there's an MPEG expansion slot that was meant for this card that they sold in Japan where you could, I think Lunar might have been the only game that used it, actually, the MPEG
Okay.
version of Lunar, but it allowed you to have higher quality video, MPEG video, and it would decode the MPEG algorithm. That slot you can plug the satiator into instead, and then you put a micro SD card in there, and you just load your games that way, and it works
Nice. So
perfectly.
has
I
it
know
got
that
a
the
hundred
Saru,
percent compatibility, or does it?
100%,
Oh,
every
nice.
game
Okay,
works.
because I think the
They all
Saru
work.
has
The-
issues with games,
It's
but
like
they're still working on
90,
it.
yeah, it's like 92 or 93%. And I think it has to do with the fact that because you're loading from the cartridge slot, and I think there might be timing and speed differences
Ah, okay.
versus an actual, loading it off of CD. I think that's the problem.
Mm.
And that's the reason why I won't buy a Saru. No disrespect to the author. I mean, if cost is an issue, the Saru is a great option to be able to play
Yeah, it's
most of
like
the games on real
$40 or
hardware.
something, isn't it, if you buy
It's
it?
it's it's like 30 or 40
Mm.
US dollars, yeah. Whereas the satiator is like 250 US dollars
Yeah.
roughly. It's a big price difference. But for me, this is just my philosophy. I could emulate the Saturn if I wanted to. I have emulated the Saturn, but if I'm going to use my actual hardware, why would I want to have something that isn't 100% compatible? It just seems goofy
No,
if
that
I'm
makes
paying
sense.
for it. For me, it just doesn't make sense. So that's why I won't use. I'm happy with my satiator. But if
Well,
you're someone that you don't want to use software emulation, you want to use hardware, and you're okay with the fact that gonna reduce compatibility anyway, then yeah, the Saru is very
So
inexpensive
what do you think
comparatively.
of the MiSTerFPGA core of the Sega Saturn?
It's much better now. When it started out, and it's like any core, right? It's going to have some bugs. It's going to be a little glitchy. One of the big things that I noticed, because for me lately, right, the last couple years, what do I mainly play on Saturn? It's been speedrunning Virtual Highlight when I
Hmm.
play it, right? And so the whole point of the Mister is supposed to be as accurate as possible to actual hardware, right? 100% accuracy is the goal. You can't always reach that, but that's the
Hmm.
goal, right? Right, no latency, that kind of stuff. So the Saturn core at the time ran games too fast. So you'd have number one, the problem of CD load times. It would load faster. And that's not unique to the Mister. That's any emulator. If you're not accounting for how long the average CD takes to load, it's going to run faster. But not only that, the GPU, it was almost as if it was overclocked. Like if you look on speedrun.com, you search for virtual highlight and you look at some of my emulator runs, one of them I do use the Mister for, which was like a version of the Mister from like a year and a half ago.
Hmm.
And Virtual Highlight runs well. Like it runs fast. Like when Jim runs, you're not skipping like every, second and third frame. Like it's just working great. The problem with that is if you're speed running Virtual Highlight, you don't want it to run faster. You want it to run accurately because you're competing against other people that also are supposed to be using the same system. So
Okay.
when it came out, it was very inaccurate. It was very fast. There were graphical glitches all over the place. Like it needed work, but the latest version is really good. Outside of the fact that kudos to the programmer of the Saturn core, by the way. I think it's is it Surge?
Yeah,
Is it Surge that's been
is
working on
yeah.
the Saturn core? Yeah,
SRG
he's
320
done it.
is their handle, but yeah, Sergi, I
Yeah,
forget the last
Sergi,
name.
yeah. He's done a fantastic job of getting all the bugs and accuracy issues worked out. And now when I play Virtual Highlight on there, it's really tough, except for CD load times, which are it's going to be faster. Outside of that, it's very accurate. Like I
Okay,
would
that's really
now,
interesting.
like if my Saturn failed, outside of speedrunning Virtual Highlight for load times, everything that I could do on my satiator, I think you're pretty close to now being able to do on the Saturn core from
Wow.
what I've seen and from testing it.
Well, you know
He
what?
did a great job.
That's freaking awesome. That's freaking awesome to hear from someone that literally like knows virtual highlight like the back of their hand. So yeah, I absolutely love the core, man. That's one thing the Mister's just given me. I feel like between the Mister and the Unlock Pocket, I don't really use any hardware. I have no need for it. I have got some hardware. I haven't got a lot of hardware, but yeah, just that urge for, oh, you know what, I want to buy a Super Nintendo and play this, or I want to buy a Mega Drive. It's completely gone. I'm super happy with playing it on that.
Yeah, no doubt. My
So
favorite, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go on, no, go on.
I was gonna say my favorite system lately to play. I've been going back to the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD again.
Nice.
And the Sega CD core is probably my only like real regret right now with the Mister. It does have a few serious bugs that make some games unplayable, or it detracts from the experience. But again, I know like the Mister team works really hard on these cores.
Mm.
I don't know if the Sega CD core has just been halted. But one game I would love to play again, that I just can't on the Mister right now is Dark Wizard. Do you remember Dark Wizard for the
I
Sega CD?
don't, but if I have it, let's have a look at it. So Dark
So
Wizard.
there's a serious, but while you're looking, there's a serious bug with that game audio wise. I reported it a couple of years ago, and I don't know if the reason why it can't get it, like it might be a thing where the core has to be rewritten, or like again, I'm not a programmer. I know a little bit of C, and that's about it, and Basic. That's it. But there's a bug where all of the sound effects in the game don't work. There are no sound effects. So
All
that
right.
means like moving the menus up and down and selecting menus. And for me, like again, I told you how big I am on audio. Like it's just
Sorry,
very
what was the game called
satisfying to
again?
me.
It's completely left my head.
Dark Wizard.
Dark
Dark
Wizard.
Wizard. Yeah,
Oh,
you
here we
have
go.
it.
Got it. Cool. Wicked.
Yeah. So like, and I'm not going to hear the audio, but you'll be able to hear it. So if you start the game, and I'm
Mhm.
watching you on the
Okay,
Discord
I'm
side
putting it
right
up a
now.
bit, so you might be able to. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna get it through your headphones. You may be able to get it through the stream. Let's have a look. So I'll put it a little bit higher so the guys at home can hear it. Hopefully, it's not too loud.
That is not Dark Wizard. What just happened here?
Is that not Dark Wizard?
Sorry, I might have a lag on YouTube. I'm looking at YouTube right now.
No, but pretty sure Dowdle did. I did Dark Wizard. Yep. Let's load it again, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, that was not whatever you
No, it's
loaded.
Dark Wizard.
That's
It's Dark Wizard.
There you go.
That
That's
was,
Dark Wizard.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So let me I'll unmute briefly. Oh, I can't. I'm in an ad. Let me skip it. Okay, there we go. Try moving the cursor, like go down to options.
It's frozen on
Moving
me.
the cursor, like go down to options. It's frozen with the cursor. Like,
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
yours froze?
No.
All right, you found another. That's another thing that it does. It sometimes will freeze. I was talking to Walrus about that a while ago.
Okay.
That's another thing that it will do. So you just encountered the other bug I was going to tell you about first.
It may have
So-
been because you know what I did was when you said it wasn't that game, I loaded the same game again. So I'm gonna do it again just to see if it doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Let's
So
see.
that's one of the two bugs. The other is there's no sound effects. So effectively, Dark Wizard, which is outside of the Working Designs RPGs, Dark Wizard is my favorite Sega CD game of all time, along with the Lunars. And I can't play it on the Mister. I'm forced to that's the reason why because this game is really cool in that there's 4 different main characters and it changes the game quite a bit. And I only did one of them on stream back in 2022. And I want to do another one, but I just don't like using RetroArch, but I can't use the Mister because it doesn't work properly. I can't have the game randomly freezing on me, and I can't have no sound
Yes,
effects.
it's
so-
frozen on me for the second time.
Yeah, it froze again. Yeah. So you see the problem. So I wish there was a way to figure out what is going on here. So for any of you programming geniuses out there affiliated with the Mister Project, I am happy to help you beta test. Just,
Do it for Zophar.
Tell me what you need.
Do it for Zophar.
Do it for Zophar.
Cool.
I will literally play this game again if it can just work. That's the only reason I haven't streamed it again.
No,
So
but
I have it. Like I own the game. I'm staring at it right now. Actually, it's in my shelf. But as you know, my Sega CD has not worked in many, many years. Sad face.
I wonder,
So-
lads, what would be interesting that shouldn't make a difference is on something like the Superstation 1, where if you're playing it directly from disc, but that shouldn't really matter, should it? If it's not working on the core, it'll be the same core. So just
Yeah.
thinking there now, that shouldn't
I
make a
see
difference.
Scandal. I see Scandal talking about the Genesis core being replaced by the rewritten Mega Drive core. So that is true, Scandal. But the way the Mister cores are written, I think it has to do with how much space they can fit, like gates on the FPGA chip. The Genesis core does not load Sega CD games. They actually broke that out into a separate core, and I think that might be part of the problem as to why not all games work properly. If I had to guess, because on a real Sega CD, you have the Genesis and the Sega CD are both running at the same time, and some games will utilize features of both systems. So I think that might be the problem is in order to accurately, I'm just guessing, but I'm guessing to accurately emulate the Sega CD like 100% of the way, you would need both the Genesis and the Sega CD running at the same time, and I don't think the Mister has been able to handle that. I think that might be the problem. Appreciate you saying that, Claus Bendix. Thank you.
Yeah, nice.
I appreciate you.
Okay, so where were we on the whole Zophar's domain thing now? Because we sidetracked, that was good, but what part were we at now? We're at a part where obviously you sold it, the Nintendo ninjas came, and all of a sudden the screen here went blank, and I had to
you were asking about
reactivate the active
soundtracks.
card.
Yeah, I do that. I get in the weeds a lot.
No,
But,
all good.
so to circle back, so many years had passed, and eventually that person sold the site that I had quote sold, which is a whole other. One day we'll talk about that. He sold it to a gentleman named Edman, and Edman has done an amazing job of making sure that site stays up. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he continues to pay whatever the costs of bandwidth are for his server that he has. And Martini and Azofria both keep Zophar's domain as up to date as they can. So obviously there's a lot of old stuff on there. Like it does need an overhaul. If you were gonna ask me what I would do, like I'd want to overhaul it. But that's not the reason why people go there anymore. When I came back to the retro community about almost 4 years ago now, because I had been out for years, but when I came back and I started going in different, I actually, the way I came back, if you're curious, is I was watching lots of speedrunning stuff because I always had a huge interest in speedrunning. I was watching Arcus. I don't know if you're familiar with Arcus, but he's a Ninja Gaiden and lots of other NES games.
Okay.
But at the time, primarily Ninja Gaiden speedrunner. and I'm watching him like play these games real fast, and I'm like, this is cool. I wanted to do this back in the 90s with my NSM contest. Like, where's he at? Who's he talking to? Like, he's talking to a chat of people. I'm like, where is this? Like, this is how like ancient I am. Like, I had made a Twitch account in 2014, Zophar 1, because 6 days prior someone took the name Zophar. Darn it. But I didn't even know what Twitch was. A friend just said, Zophar, you should have a Twitch account. I'm like, okay. Someone took the name. I'll just be Zophar 1. I'm like, what is Twitch? They're like, oh, you can play games on it. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know what the hell it was. I had no idea. So I had an account that was dormant for like 8 years, just doing nothing. And so when I watched Arcus speedrunning, I'm making a point, I swear, about Zophar's domain here. So what happened was I see it, and I'm like, okay, he's on Twitch. I see people talking about Twitch. So I go on Twitch. And every time I would talk, or someone would bring up something about an emulator, someone would go, wait, are you the Zophar from Zophar's domain?
Hey, hold on.
And I'm
hold
like,
on.
yeah, and I didn't realize it was still, I hadn't looked in years.
I said the same thing to you. I was like, hey,
oh
are
my
you
God,
Zophar
dude, I
from
used your
Zophar's
site in high
domain?
school, and I downloaded my Nintendo games, and you told me where to go get them, and the news, and Nesticle, and Genesis, and ZSNES, and all this. And I'm like, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. And it kept happening. Every stream I would go into, it kept happening. And I'm not sitting there and announcing myself. I'm not like, hi everybody, it's Zophar. Hey kids. No, like I'm just in there just chatting about games, and they're seeing the name Zophar 1 and they're asking. So I'm like, wow, there's and all the things I wanted to do in the 90s, right? I thought maybe I could start doing. But what I found out in getting back into the community is that people remembered Zophar's domain. People like that are in their 40s and like late 30s and maybe even mid 30s remember Zophar's domain for the emulators, but everybody else remembers the soundtracks, because before I left, like I said, that last year and a half, I had started the work getting those initial soundtrack archives up and getting all those files up, and then it spiraled in a good way into let's put everything up there, and that's what my successors did. And so now nobody goes to Zophar's domain for the emulators. It's not really updated in that kind of way anymore. Martini does the best he can. He does a hell of a job being him and Azofria being a 2-person show. But everyone, like, I go there. There are times where I'm like, oh, I need to grab like the Highlight soundtrack real quick. Oh crap, let me go to Zophar.net. I do that. In fact, the funniest moment, just to circle back around Zophar's domain, how it's all about the soundtracks now, which I 100% agree with, it is. There was a program, it wasn't Modizer, but Modizer's awesome for my iPhone, but there was an app before Modizer that would play NSFs and SPCs and, video game music, and I was like, oh, there's an iPhone app for this now. This is cool. I wonder how you get the soundtracks on here. So I downloaded the app. I wish I could remember what it was called. It was before Modizer in like maybe 2020 or 2021. So I download this app on my iPhone, and I see a little button at the bottom where you go to get the soundtracks, like archive. So I click on it on my app. Guess where it takes you to?
Zophar's domain, baby.
Zophar's domain. I'm like, this is so meta. Like, this is funny. So I just that was kind of like that was a fun little touch there. But yeah, Zophar's domain is very much now about the soundtrack. So it's almost like how with Metallica, since you brought up like in Metallica, you've got the era of the people that love the original 4, like me. I do actually love, like Ride the Lightning and all that stuff. And then you have people that got into it when they became more mainstream, right? Which is, Black Album. And then you have people that like their later stuff, like Load, Reload, right?
Yeah,
and
no, I'm not the later stuff. So it was like Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets was Kill 'Em All, one of their albums as well, and obviously and Justice for All, and then the Black Album kind of being the final one. I haven't really listened to anything after that.
Right. But then you have a whole other generation of people that love Metallica for the newer stuff, right? Some people like Death Magnetic and all that. So I think that Zophar's domain, the same thing has happened. You have the people that remember the very beginning, right? And they remember the emulators, and they remember the news and the utilities, and that's how they started playing video games on their computer. There are people that said they got into video game designing with Zophar's domain, which is wild to me, and I feel so freaking humbled by that. But then there's people that don't know any of that, but they knew the soundtracks. Hey, Zophar, I went to your site, 15 to 20 years ago, and that's where I got all my soundtracks from, and all my like Rig told me that. Retro Island Gaming from Twitch, awesome dude. I love him. He's great. One of the best Twitch retro streamers out there, far better than me. He told me he used Zophar's domain. He submitted stuff to them. He submitted music to Zophar's domain after I had left Retro Island Gaming. And here's one more thing for you. Ready for this one? this blows my mind. I was gonna say this for episode 3 of Retro Rewind, but I'll just say it here. Are you all familiar with Toby Fox from Undertale fame?
I
You
know
heard of
Undertale.
Undertale?
Is he the guy that
Okay.
made it?
He's the guy that made it, Toby
Okay.
Fox. So he used to go under a different name. And this is, so if you don't know this already, I'm just gonna say it here. So here you get a little scoop if you didn't know this. But he actually has a submission on Zophar's domain as Flug Radiation for a ROM hack. Isn't
Nice.
that
Let's
wild?
bring him up. Here we go. He's here. And isn't he such
You
a
see?
handsome fella? Here you go. Let's make it a bit big.
That's him.
That's the guy.
So
There you go.
Yep. So if you search, I think you could actually probably do this like real time.
Okay,
If you
let's do
search
that.
for a Flug Radiation, so
Ooh.
FWUG.
Let's bring it up. Let's do it real time. Bear with me. Your call is important to us, and you are number
Yep.
1 in the queue. So Flug, yeah, FLUGG.
Yep, FWUG.
Oh, sorry, FWUG. Okay, that might be enough of a hit. Oh no, okay. What am I searching?
And then radiation, all one word. So
okay.
Flug Radiation.
On Zophar's domain, right? Let me go.
He put some soundtracks up there too. I think it might have been like Brandish 2. So I don't know if you see that.
Let's see if we get
But
that. No,
here,
we haven't
I'll
got
even-
anything here.
I have an X link from the Daily Toby Fox trivia channel. Here, I'm gonna paste it in here.
Cool.
There, it's in your
It's in there,
Discord
yeah. All right,
chat.
let me bring that. Let me turn this off a second for data protection reasons, and let's go into. Oh, actually, no, that would have been all right actually because it's in the Discord chat. Sorry, guys, doing stuff here real time, and let's find it. How do I go into messaging now? Ooh. Sorry, dude, I suck at this. How am I going to go into this? I can see we're sharing our screens. Do I click here? Sorry, Zophar. I did
No, you're
bring
good.
the
Take your time.
messages up before.
While you're doing that, if
Yep.
it's okay, I'll talk to chat a little bit here. They're asking some
Yeah,
questions.
go for it. Go for it, man.
Scandal says, is Sega CD a neglected core, or is there a more recent nightly build? This is a great question. I should really check on the Mr. Discord to see. But I can tell you that in terms of like the current release, it hasn't been updated since April of 2024. So it's been almost a year and a half. And that update was because I was having trouble streaming Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. The audio was really, really low. Like I couldn't hear it. And I use a gaming monitor that has built-in speakers. So he put in a compressor for me to give it 2x and 4x boost. He did that for me. So that was the last time the Sega CD core was updated. Scandal was a year and a half ago when I was asking about audio. Unloved Tommy says, careful now, Mr. Fox is close with Nintendo. Uh-oh. Ryan says, you have Lunar on Switch now. You're actually going to play one of them now, but then you saw the stream was up. So the remaster is a good way to play it if you have no other way to do it. However, I would highly recommend, if you've never played Lunar before, Ryan, do either the Sega CD or the PlayStation versions first. They changed all of the voice actors, actresses, and singers. Jenny Steigel, for example, who I'm a huge fan of, who did all the vocalizations for singing Luna, singing Lucia, and a lot of other characters. She's not in it at all. They replaced her with someone that's okay, but it's not the same. So I would say, I'm not trying to badmouth the remaster, but I would do the original first if you have a way to do it. But if not, the core of the game is still intact.
Okay, sorry, we've got this over here now from Fog Radiation from Undertale fame, making a submission on Zophar's domain. So there you go, guys.
Yep, isn't that wild? So like the more I was learning, I was finding out that there's people that have done so like far, far greater, more important, more exciting, cool stuff than I will ever do or ever did. But just the fact that just because I was a kid in high school that had his hardware failing and had no money and got $3 an hour at a pizza shop and just wanted to play video games on the computer and could not find a site that had it all, that it led to this. Like, that's just wild to me, and I'm forever humbled. Like, and again, I couldn't have done this without all the other people that were part of it. Otherwise, all I have is an idea in my head and nothing more. That's all it would have been, was just an idea. And everyone else around me helped to make it a reality and continue to. So thanks to all of them.
No, absolutely.
They are the true heroes.
Absolutely banging. So I actually need to use your website for soundtracks. I use, which is the one I use? Let me show you the one. This is the one I usually go to. I've had this one bookmarked for years. I don't know. Do you know these guys? Let's have a look. Let's bring it up. These guys right here. Do you know this website? It's called
I have used
downloads.consider.com.
that site. Yeah, I've used that site before. Primarily because some of the stuff, just full transparency, sometimes you get a bad rip on Zophar's domain that it's not perfect. Like there are some that are just like glitchy or crackly. And this site, I don't know who runs it, but the soundtracks on there are better. Some of them are better quality, or they're not glitchy. Like Shining the Holy Ark for the Sega Saturn, which has a really cool soundtrack, is an example of one that has a problem on Zophar's domain. But if you go to the site you were just on, I forget the name, but I have a bookmark too.
Yeah.
That site has that soundtrack in completion, and it's not messed up.
I'll bring it up again. It's always good
So
to share. Yes, I generally, when I get my when I need like for the weekly news video, I'll go on then. See, do you know what? Sometimes it's the longest bloody thing. So I'll do the weekly news video. Everything will be done.
yep,
So guys, the website is called. I'll post it in chat. So
yep.
what I'll do
And
is I'll
that's
get
like,
no, sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'll get the weekly news video done. I'm proper happy, and do you know what takes the longest is actually finding the bloody soundtrack. I can't find it, and then I'll start looking at soundtracks, and I draw a blank. I'm like, I know so many games where I like the soundtrack, but I can't think of one now. And then I get one, and the soundtrack just doesn't go with the video, and it takes a bit of time. So I end up just recycling the same soundtracks again. You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, the theme of Roll from Marvel vs. Capcom, Kami Stage from Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the 3DS. There's another game, Phantasm, which is a Jellicle Mega System 1 game, Outzone. So I've got my ones that when I spend too much, if I spend more than 5 minutes looking, I'm like, all right, let me just run one of the other ones again.
The game you just mentioned, Phantasm, that's not based on the movie series Phantasm, is it?
No, no, no. So
Oh,
it's one where you are out and you get robbed and they shoot you, and I can't remember if they kidnap your girlfriend or something, and you come back as a spirit and you can possess any of the enemies with the exception of the bosses. So you know you be one enemy, be another one. We can run it actually. We've got the arcade core over here, so let's
there you go.
run that.
I see you got Shining Force CD playing right
I
now,
had
which,
it on
well,
there. You
not
kind of
now. Yeah.
mentioned it a bit, so I was like, so we're trying
Yep.
to make the eye
That,
candy all right because we don't have our
yeah, yeah.
beautiful faces online.
That's for Chad. In case I don't know, I've been streaming that game on Twitch lately, and I got to the museum battle, which is the secret area of the game. Basically, it's your post game after you've beaten everything else. And I was so confident, like, oh, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna beat this. Like, I've never beaten on normal before, only ever easy. And I couldn't seal the deal last night. Like, I was up like I would have kept going if it hadn't been for our interview today. I would have just stayed up later, but I was like, man, like I've tried this battle now 3 times. We've been at it for almost 5 hours. Like it's we're just gonna save here and we're gonna try it again another day. But that game, Shining Force City, is really good. But like, especially the later books, the later half of the game gets really difficult.
So,
So if you want a challenge, highly recommended.
do you play
Oh, okay.
any
This is
new
kind of
modern games? Do you play any? Is there something new that you would like? For example, I'm looking forward to Shinobi coming out this weekend, and I'm going to dedicate some time to that. Maybe even do a stream of it. So, are there any new games? When I say new games, it can be a new retro game.
So, what if I were to tell you that I am interested, but every time, this is going to sound so bad. I'm just going to say it. Every time I attempt to do that and I stream it, I am reminded that my core brand is retro. Does
Hmm.
that make sense what I just
No,
said?
no, completely does.
So,
Completely.
like, I like Elden Ring's a good example. Like, I wanted to play Elden Ring. I own it. I have it for the PS5, the original one, not the expansion, just the
Hmm.
first Elden Ring. And I streamed it a couple times, but one of my rules when I stream something is like I have to be having fun and chat has to be enjoying it. Because if I'm enjoying it but chat isn't, then it's less fun for me.
Hmm. No, no, I get that completely. Hello, Zophar, you still there? Oh, have we lost Zophar? Let me check the Twitch app. Sorry, guys.
My audience
Oh,
prefers mostly retro. Even
oh,
there are
sorry,
some
dude.
games
Your audio went for for 10
I've never opened
seconds.
it. I would love to, but every time I think about it, it's like, well, Zophar, why don't you just play it? When you're not streaming. The problem is, when is that? If I'm not streaming 5 days a week, or I'm not working on YouTube, or I'm not with my family, or I'm not at my full-time job, like when do I play it? So the answer is there are indeed modern games I want to play, and I have not yet found a way to work them into the Zophar brand.
So what if, so for example, like a modern game, it doesn't have, like for me, it doesn't have to be a modern game. Like for example, I would like to play Monster Hunter. I don't get the time to do it, so I haven't done it. I just wasted my money on a brand new PC, but never mind. But something like Shinobi, because it has the heritage. It's one of my favorite arcade games, Shinobi, especially Shadow Dancer. It has that heritage. So playing that, so okay, if I was to do a stream of that, like I think the most popular stream I've done has had like around 200. An average MiSTerFPGA stream will kind of go up to, or an Analog Pocket one will go to around 50. Something popularish will go up to 100. So if I was to do Shinobi, I kind of expect maybe 20 people to hang around and watch it. But it'll be one of those things where I want to play the game, so I might as well stream a little bit and then continue playing it off stream.
Yeah, so what I would say to that is I can get away with that with some games. For example, when Shredder's Revenge came out, because it's done in the retro style. Like I could probably do Sonic Mania, which I love. I have that game. I beat that off stream years ago. Like those kind of games. Someone sent me a code to the new Shinobi game. Like I got emailed to Zophar at zophar.tv, and I've been so busy I didn't even redeem it yet. Like I
Wow.
could get it. Now I loved Revenge of Shinobi for Sega Genesis, by the way. That tough game. But I haven't looked too much into the new Shinobi game. Is it done in the retro style, or is it
No,
just
it's got a new. It looks more like Streets of Rage 4. Well, not exactly like Streets of Rage 4, but have that art style in mind. So
I could do that
retro-y,
too.
but
So
yeah,
I got away with Streets of Rage 4. I streamed that a couple years ago when
you
it
might
came out.
be all right with
So
it.
like some of that
Try it
stuff,
out. Yeah, try it out, man. Put the code in. Like I love that. I played the demo. I played it. It's wicked. I prefer it to the Ninja Gaiden game, and the Ninja Gaiden game is very good as well, by the way. But yeah, thing is, Shinobi's really good. And another one that actually I'm looking forward to is that two actually now, Marvel's Cosmic Invasion, and bloody He-Man. What the heck? That just looks amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I will be, just so you all know, I will be playing that. I'm a big He-Man fan. It's the original cartoon that I remember were two of them.
It has to be done. That
Thundercats
and
and He-Man.
Thundercats as well.
I
Yeah.
was the guy. Thundercats is the other one. Thundercats. But with
Ooh.
He-Man, like I would always sit there. I would like grab like a I don't know if you ever did this, but like you know how paper towels have that little cardboard tube inside. So I
Right.
would sit there and take the cardboard tube outside the paper towels, and I would like hold it up high, and I would hold it like a sword, and I would go, "I have the power!" like all day long. It was crazy.
And someone's
I had
shouting
Castle
in the toilet.
Grayskull.
Okay, now I was going to say someone's shouting in the toilet. You have the power, but I don't have the toilet paper.
Exactly. You might have the power, but I can't wipe my butt. But like I had all of Castle Grayskull.
Ooh.
And like I had like all the figures. Like I had He-Man, I had Skeletor, I had Fisto, I had like it was great. Man at Arms, all Tila. So I'm a big He-Man fan. I've always wondered why there hasn't really been a real He-Man game. There was like that Tappers of the Universe iPhone slop a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
Like
I tried that. Was there a She-Ra game for the iPhone? It was actually bad. I just can't play with touch controls, but it was a side scroller from what I remember, and I bought it years and
that
years
one I
ago.
didn't see. The one I saw is literally you're sitting there tapping and tapping, just getting
yeah, no, I
points.
hate
Like,
that. I hate those ones.
I hate
horrible,
that stuff.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah.
Horrible.
But this looks like literally He-Man in the Streets of Rage pixel style. I was like, oh, I need this in my life.
It looks like looks like the new Golden Axe. You know what I mean? It looks like Golden Axe, but He-Man and modernized.
Correct. I will be playing that. I hope it's okay, PCN. I just want to real quick. Somebody said in chat, Ryan said you should just start another channel for more modern games. You need to keep channels focused. You get nailed in the algo. So yes, Ryan, this is what I've learned, and I learned it too late. That your channels have to be very focused. So I have 2 YouTube channels. I split away my @Zophar1 from @Zophar Live, and I try to keep my live streams that I do on Twitch just on Zophar Live, whereas Zophar1 I do my documentaries and stuff now, like Retro Rewind. But the problem is I taught the algorithm over like a year period that Zophar1 did a bunch of different things, and so it doesn't know who to show my content to. It absolutely sucks. Like I don't know how to, and that's also another thing. Like people ask me about Zophar's Retro Rewind. Like I worry I'll put all this time into it, and then YouTube's algorithm will just decide not to show it because I spent 6 months live streaming on Zophar1. So I'm still trying to figure it out, like if I just destroyed my channel or what.
That happens with YouTube. Like there was a point where I'm really into like handheld devices. So I used to buy handheld PCs. So ages ago, I used to do like performance stuff on there, and then I just done a separate channel, but I don't really upload anything to that. I made a separate channel called Smack My Deck, as in Smack My Steam Deck. But yeah, you got to keep it separate. So what I do is I generally cover FPGA gaming stuff, and what I'll do is I'll venture into some retro stuff, but it has to be within that kind of niche bracket. I won't really go out of it. So for example, Castlevania, when a new collection comes out, I'll run that. On the Nintendo Switch recently, my friend gave me access to his account, so I had lots of Arcade Archive games to test out. So as long as they fit within that retro stuff. But if you go, so for anyone out there doing YouTube, whatever channel you do, stick to your niche. Let's say you do Super Mario World speedruns, right? You're building your subscriber base. Now, if all of a sudden you think, oh, I'm going to play Elden Ring, think about it this way. If you're there for Super Mario World speedruns and you see Elden Ring pop up on your stream, the first thing you're going to go is, I don't like Elden Ring, and you're going to unsubscribe to that channel. So you need to really, really stick within your niche. And if you ever branch out, it has to be very, very related to the niche that you're doing.
Yep, that's exactly what you said is what I learned, but I think I learned it far too late.
Yeah.
Because now I've confused the algorithm as to what the channels are really about. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of
it'll come back. It'll come back as long as you keep, doing your normal stuff. It will come back. And what's really funny as well is, don't ask your grandmother, or actually a lot of us are old now, we don't have our grandmothers. Don't ask your mother and your aunties and your uncles to subscribe, because all of a sudden they're going to get, hey, guess what? Top 10 Mr. games. They're going to get, what the heck's this Mr.? They're never going to click it. And then the algorithm's going to think, well, this guy subscribed, he doesn't like it, your content must be crap.
Your content must be crap.
Yeah, so never ask anyone to subscribe. Only if someone wants to subscribe, let them subscribe. And it's better to get that organic growth.
You're right. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, I need to get my wife to unsubscribe now. She's probably killing my channel. I think
Good news, my wife doesn't subscribe.
Oh,
so
wicked! I'm going to tell her, look, can you please unsubscribe? Don't watch it. Don't watch my stuff, because then you watch all these dramas and all these cookery things, and it's way confused now. So let's see what's
Ops asks, isn't there a way to reset the algorithm? I don't think it works in that manner. It's more of just, you just have to start doing what Pixel Cherry Ninja is saying, which is be organic. And over time, hopefully the algorithm sees the new data of, okay, this is actually his audience. Here, we're gonna show it to this group of people. All right, they're actually watching it. We're gonna keep showing it to this group of people. Now we'll branch out a little bit. But you don't get to see any of this. Like don't. All we get to see is how many views we're getting and how long the person's watching. We don't get to know what the algorithm is or isn't doing. Although we can guess. Well, if you release a video and a bunch of people watch it the first half hour and then it stops showing your video, the algorithm decided your video was crap content.
Yeah, you get a lot of that. I get a lot. Like first 2 hours it kills it and then it goes down. But to be honest, sometimes it is just crap content, so no worries there.
But like if you take Zophar's Retro Rewind, and look again, there's far, but like you and many others far better YouTubers than I'll ever be. But like I thought Retro Rewinds episode 1 and 2, I thought they were pretty good. Like I'm not.
Dude, they were banging.
I thought they were pretty cool, right?
Man,
and each one of them got, the first one I think got about 6,000 views, and the other one got about 5,000. Now that sounds like, okay, that's not bad, but like we sunk. Oh man, me and my brother sunk so much time into them. And it's like, man, I know there's more people that I think would find this cool, but YouTube didn't find the audience for everybody is what I think. It had 99.6% likes on it. Like people watched it mostly the way through. Like the analytics all look good, but at a certain point, it just decided to stop showing it. And ironically, the video that continues to show to everybody, the only video, is one of the most throwaway videos that I ever did. It was it's a 5-minute video, Pixel Cherry Ninja, about how to back up your PS2 memory cards to your computer.
Yeah, but
using free McBoot. And the only reason I even made the video was I was finishing up Retro Rewind episode 1. This was a couple years ago. And I was like, oh man, I got to get these saves onto my computer because I'm playing Dragon Quest VIII on Twitch. And, I might have to use an emulator. I don't know if the PS2 is going to hold up because the disc was freezing. I was like, oh, here it goes. So I was like, let me go. How do I do this? So it's like the Zophar's domain thing. I'm trying to find out how to back up my card. I can't find the answer simply. The YouTube videos that were made about backing things up are like an hour long. I'm like, once again, I'm just going to make one. I'm going to make a 5-minute video. I'm going to figure out how to do it myself and make a video of me doing it. So I made a 5-minute video, really, really condensed, quick edits. Here's what you buy. Here's where it is on Amazon. Here's what you do. Boom, done. It's the most successful video I've ever had.
But see, the thing is, Zophar, The reason
Like
that's done really well, that's obviously what we call evergreen. It's a helpful video
evergreen,
that
right?
hasn't been, so it hasn't reached the part now where it's irrelevant. It's still relevant. You can still watch it. You can still learn something. You can still do something with it. Funnily enough, I think one of my most popular videos is well, a couple of them are analog pocket guides A to Z. One of them's actually, I did a video when I got my Asus ROG Ally to say how to install RetroArch on the Asus ROG Ally. It's literally how you install it on Windows, and it just keeps getting views even now. So there you go.
It's just so ironic, right? And I know like the analytics are telling me it because it keeps creeping up where everything else flatlined. But then I had a guy come to my house last year that I knew from high school, and he comes to my house for Halloween. With his kid. I hadn't seen him in years. This was last October. I don't know if you do Halloween in the UK, but he came to my house and he's like, "Hey man, listen, I just want to let you know, I saw you on YouTube. Dude, you saved my life. I thought my PS2 memory card was done because I couldn't load it in the PS2 anymore. And then you told me about Free McBoot on the video, and I bought the stuff you said, and now I got all my saves. Thanks, dude." I'm like, holy crap.
Wicked.
Okay,
There you
people are
go.
really watching it. It's
There you
getting to
go.
the audience. Like,
Banging.
so,
Just gonna give. We got about 10 minutes left of the stream. So
sure.
no, whatever you want to go over. So if there was anything you kind of want to go, I'm happy with the normal convo. But if there's any points you wanted to mention on there, you wanted to talk more about Zophar's domain, future plans, just go all out, man. I'm really enjoying the conversation, so I'm actually happy to kind of sit back and listen for a change.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, like when we're done, like any other times you want to, just we'll talk about my schedule, but like I'm happy to appear. We could probably talk, like I can talk. My chat will tell you, like I can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. People tell me I should probably do a podcast, but like that'd be an interesting format. But no, I would just say, firstly, that I am very proud of what we did with Zophar's domain, and I'm very happy that most other sites that are not up anymore, ours still is. Zophar's domain still exists. You can go there right now. Much better people than I are keeping it alive right now, and relevant on the soundtrack end. And I highly recommend you continue to use it for all of your audio needs. And then second of all, as far as like me, what I'm doing now. So I stream on Twitch and I also have a YouTube. We just talked about this, right? But I stream on Twitch and I have 2 YouTube channels. I'm usually live 5 days a week, which is usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, and then Monday during the day, which is why we're doing this interview during the day. This would be normally one of the times I'd be streaming. And I do a lot of retro. I would say 95% of everything I stream is retro. I love RPGs. I love platformers. I love the 90s era the best, right? So Sega Genesis, Sega CD. I do like the NES era, the Saturn, like that whole era. PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. The
1.
16-bit era was my golden era. I like 8-bit, but
Yep.
16-bit is where it's at.
16-bit was where it was at for me. Yep. And I was here for the 8-bit era, and I have a lot of 8-bit games I love, but the 16-bit was where it was like,
Yeah,
it started to
absolutely.
become cool to like video games. Like, man, this is cool. Like, oh man, I'm beating dudes up with Adam and Streets of Rage and getting street meat and chicken on the ground, all that stuff. So yeah, but you can, is it okay if I tell people the URLs?
Yeah, of course, man. Let me do you know what? Send them in the Discord chat. Let me post them in
Yeah,
the
I'll
in
put
the
them in the
live chat. Now, I'll
Discord
probably
chat.
put them in the description already, to be honest. But let's put them in the live chat as so they can pop up. So I did actually figure out how to get to the messages in Discord because they pop up in the top left. And yep, I've got them here. So just put in all the URLs you want. Let's go.
There you go.
So cool.
So that's my streaming endeavors right there. So I pasted you the Twitch live
You know
streaming.
what it is? I think if
and
you
then
copy them in there, they like, I think they get flagged as spam or whatever from YouTube. So okay, so Twitch TV, YouTube, which one have I done? Right, cool. Yeah, sorry, no, go ahead. If you want to engage with the
yeah, no
audience while I
problem.
copy that stuff out.
So that's where I'm spending a lot of my time is just what I find, and this is why I put forums on Zophar's domain in the beginning anyway. That was another thing that I had noticed, that all these sites that did exist, there wasn't a lot of interaction. Like I'd be like, hey, I'd love to ask this guy about this, and I'd love to ask about that, but I have no way. All I can do is email them and hope that they eventually respond. I was like, I need something more real time. So that's why we had the forums on Zophar's domain. So now years later, the reason why I like streaming over, documentary style YouTube content, which like I said, I'm still doing Retro Rewind, but I prefer the live streaming because I can have real time interaction with all of you. I love interacting. I am that guy. I will sit there. I can miss stuff because, it's just how I am, but I will, like right now, I'm trying to multitask right now, just looking at chat and, responding. Morris says, bring back the Saturday podcast. There you go. But I love interacting with people. So if you want to interact, Twitch or my YouTube live channel, that's the place to do it. And I actually think that people make it more exciting. Like, if I'm just playing a game and like nobody's talking, there's nobody there, I'm playing by myself. It's just not the same as having, people talking and chatting and trolling you and yelling and whatever. Like, I find it all awesome. Um,
No, that is
so
it. Live streams for anyone out there as well, and I'd strongly recommend this. If you ever, like, there was someone during COVID, and I was like, look, dude, if you're feeling lonely, you're having to isolate, just live stream. Even if you've got one or two people watching. And that's how you're beginning. It's a lot of fun, and for me, like I find it like as crazy as it is, a very very good social activity. I can actually go and see real friends sometimes on a weekend, or I can do a stream, and I have just as much fun. Don't get me wrong, I do meet people in real life and that, but like you said, the aspect of the engagement, speaking to people in almost real time, reacting to that, it's just amazing. I actually prefer streaming to doing videos. Like, I do videos, I've done lots of videos, but streaming is just, there's a whole different buzz about it that you can't get from making videos. So definitely check out Zophar's stuff because it's freaking awesome.
I appreciate that. Ryan says if the new He-Man game has online multiplayer, you should play a co-op on stream. Oh, I would totally do that.
Oh,
That's what we
100%.
did with Shredder's Revenge. I ended up playing with my brother locally, and then I played with another person that was in the chat. That
That's the
stuff's
way
really
to
fun
do
to
it.
do.
So
Yep.
before that, Marvel's Cosmic Invasion is going to come out, and I'm really hoping that's got online, because if it does, then I'll post it online, or I'll post the room online and people can join. We did that with Mario Kart. I can't remember, Animataka. Do you remember how many people we got? I think we got about 20 odd people playing Mario Kart World on the Switch too, and that was kind of fun. Was a little bit away from my normal niche, but because it was Mario Kart Nintendo, it was kind of all right. I might do another one at some point, but I feel like the brawlers will be a lot more fun to kind of go through and play online with people. So, and I think maybe Zophar, what we'll do then is, if you're going to pick up Marvel's Cosmic Invasion, let's do like a double stream where you're going to stream to your audience and I'll play online and I'll stream to my audience, and we can
Yeah,
turn
that'd
it
be
into
fun.
some kind of event. Oh, definitely, that should be a lot of fun. Marvel's Cosmic Invasion is coming out first. Hopefully, He-Man has online play. If it doesn't, then we may be able to use something like Parsec, where I'm stream, or like the game sharing in Steam or
Yeah,
something, where
I
you're sharing my screen and having your inputs
Yeah,
from my
I
PC.
have I have Parsec installed. I use that with Twitch streamer Phenomenon to
Okay.
do some Sega CD stuff. As long as you can be the host, because on a Mac it won't let me host PC,
Oh,
but
that
it
should be
will let
fine.
PC
Should be
host
fine.
Mac. It would work because I do use that. So yeah, that'd be fun. I'm down for that.
Oh, wicked, cool. All right, guys, look, we're gonna kind of wrap it up over here. Look, thank you everyone that tuned in. Zophar, thank you so much, man. Honestly, amazing.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Like you mentioned here, where people are like, hey, are you Zophar from Zophar's Domain? And that's how we kind of met, because when you kind of started popping up again and you were on social media, and I was like, Zophar from Zophar's Domain, and all of a sudden it came flooding back. And like I said, there wasn't at the time any ROMs there or anything, and I didn't really engage too much in it. I was just looking for stuff, and I ended up going to DG Emu, but I remember doing searches for it and always coming across the website. So naturally, as soon as I heard it and I heard Zophar's Domain, boom, it's like something that I forgot about, but like when you forget something but someone mentions it, you remember it again. So that was remembered. And dude, it was an absolute pleasure. I was so looking forward to this. And a little bit of trivia here as well. We were supposed to do this 2 weeks ago. So what kind of happened there? One of my closest friends, his dad was diagnosed with cancer, and it got really late, so they couldn't treat him. So they basically just said to him, you last as long as you last. And I said to him, look, I'm on standby. So I was on standby. I said to Zophar, look, I'm really sorry, I might be on standby. So we cancelled the first one. Then the second one was the day I actually had to pick up my friend's dad. And I said, look, can we delay it by 3 hours? And Zophar was like, no, let's do it next week. So finally, after the third one, so thank you so much for your patience, and thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait for our next endeavor. Just you let me know, Discord or otherwise, and we'll work it out. That sounds like a
Wicked.
lot of fun. And thanks for hanging out, everybody. We really appreciate you.
Wicked. And let me just type in thanks for watching. I'm so budget. But cool. All right, guys. Look, peace, love, and harmony. Absolutely awesome. Make sure you check out Zophar's stuff and press that like button. Hit that sub if you loved it. This is Pixel Cherry Ninja and Zophar out.